the Hankook 24 Hours of Dubai, the start of the international endurance season.
We're attracting cars from all over the world.
Teams, a lot of drivers from everywhere coming for it.
Up to 90 cars on track. It's extremely busy.
There aren't too many races like this in the whole world.
It's something that's almost indescribable unless you've been here and experienced it yourself.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Dubai Autodrome as we kick off the 2023 season of the 24-hour series powered by Hankook. It is the Hankook 24 Hours of Dubai. Phil Anson and John Heidolf in the booth tonight, overlooking pretty dark. Sun went down about 10-15 minutes ago, and we're into an hour of night practice, a little later than we'd expected. The support races today all running to time plus a lap, and they all got so close to their time before they had to do their next to last lap that it added things on. We've already started part of this championship season because the new Middle East Championship, the 24H Series Middle East Championship, started in Kuwait in December last year. Here in Dubai, we're in the middle portion of that championship, and we'll finish it off next weekend at Yas Marina for the 6 hour of Abu Dhabi. So that is a championship within itself, and it will finish next weekend. But Dubai also, of course, is the opening of our season, the full season, which we can talk about because the middle part of the season is the European Trophy. And we'll head to Mugello in March, towards the end of March, and then in May it's the 12 Hours of Spa, 12 Hours of Monza in June, 12 Hours of Estoril, new event, new venue, beautiful part of the Portuguese coast, Cascais and the fishing villages just down the road there. And that's a 6 hour qualifying race as well. That's early July. And then we'll finish off the European Trophy season with the now traditional 24-hour classic, 15th to the 17th of September at the Circuit de Catalunya for the 24 Hours of Barcelona. Then, of course, we'll be back in Kuwait in early December to round off the season and kick off the next round. This is not competitive, so don't worry. 40 seconds ago, the green light came out, came on, and the flag was waved. We've got cars heading out onto the track, and this is an open session. This is an all-skate for all 53 cars we think we've got. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but let's pick up a bit of the atmosphere down in the pit lane. Nick Damon is on duty, and we've already said Happy New Year to him, so we won't do that again. But Nick is down there with Seb in the pit lane. Good evening, Nick.
Good evening, John. Good evening, everybody listening out there in TV and radio and internet land. It's a beautiful evening now here in Dubai. The sun has truly set. We are almost full darkness, except for this hour of practice. It's interesting, normally, of course, qualifying is finished at this point. We have a long evening practice, they will relax into it. Well, no, this time they've got an hour and then they have to continue qualifying. Earlier today, the first 2 of 4 drivers had their go and set their fastest lap, but we still have the 3rd and the 4th drivers from each team to set their lap, and that will set the overall grid. So not only are they trying to set the cars up, trying to get their drivers' night qualified, but they've also keep an eye on the final elements of qualifying that will set the grid for tomorrow's race, which will start about 3. But you need to be here at 2:15 local time, because I'm meandering up another pit lane. Go on.
The grid walk that really does mark the start of the season. Nick modelling, by the way, the new for 2023 colourways for the Creventic pit lane team with their grey and green over fleeces. Why he's got that on, I'm not certain. It is not that cold
Is?
at the moment. Is, he says. in the air. Evening, Phil. How are you?
Very well, thank you, John. Really looking forward to this session. It's going to be an interesting one, as Nick said, because you've got to look after the car because you've got more qualifying to do. You just can't go out there and just throw it in there and go, oh, I've got to get my night speed up. No. You can't do that. You've got to look after the car. Every driver has to do at least 2 laps in this session in order to qualify to race tomorrow.
Well, is that the case, though?
Well,
the guys who do the 2 night qualifying sessions, surely they count for that.
Well, they should count for that, but it's not in the regulations yet. This is so new. Remember, this is the first time I've ever had night qualifying in the 24-hour series, so it's a very new thing indeed.
Nick Damon?
Yes, I am with a stalwart of the event, a favourite, a former champion of the entirety of the Creventic series. One of the Mutrons, it's Sammy Mutron. Sammy, tell me a bit more about your challenge this year for the Dubai 24 Hour.
So we're in 992 Pro. It's the 3 brothers. We've got Phil Keane with us, who's another great addition to the team. Most of the same crew that we're used to, so just looking forward to getting the 992 out there for 24 hours.
But a different attitude towards the race, you were telling us.
Yeah, I mean, compared to where we've been before, 992 Pro seems really competitive. The whole 992 class is really competitive. I think this race is going to be a lot more about racing every lap rather than just last into the end. I think the Dubai 24 Hours is always a bit of a race of attrition. You're hoping to stay out of trouble and last as long as you can, but I don't think there's any room for error this year. I think it's going to be pretty quick.
You've been in a lot of different cars, and in previous seasons, further back when there were so many cars, how is it like being in a relatively a car that's only slightly off the fastest and just 54 cars on the track?
Already in practice, you're feeling that the race is going to be quicker. Like you said, I think all but 11 cars are above 992, so the race is going to be a lot quicker. It feels like there's a bit more space. Just enjoying going around quicker.
And has the track improved from yesterday?
Well, yeah, I mean, yesterday was really odd. We've done this race so many times. We've never had such a green track at the beginning of the weekend, and all the teams are talking about it. You couldn't find it set up. You couldn't find any grip in the car. So, yeah, today was a lot better, and hopefully tonight gets a bit better. And then once we get in the race, we'll go from there.
Sammy, great stuff. Good luck.
Great to have the Mutrons back. The dual racing team. I think Sammy Mutron, and Nick and I were talking on Wednesday on what for us was a midnight motorsport, of course, because we were here in Dubai up at Ras Al Khaimah and just doing a bit of prep before the work of the race week got underway. There's an opportunity here, Phil, for this to be a distance record this year. We're down to 53 cars because we've lost one of the one of the Dragon Racing cars.
Yep.
That car, the Mercedes, had a shunt yesterday.
That's official withdrawn now. That's
the number 488.
Yes.
Yeah. So that car will not be coming back. I think 53, 54, up towards 60. We've always talked about that as being probably the sweet spot for this track. And given the quality of the cars and the fact that so many cars are in the top couple of classes, there's an opportunity here, isn't there, for us to have a nice clean race and have, as Sammy was saying there, you'll be racing every lap here.
Yeah, exactly, and it's because of the quality of the field and because of the number in the field and the amount of GT cars we've got. Most of our Code 60s when we were up in the 75, 80 cars always came from driver frustration in traffic, just always in traffic. And it just took the edge off the race because we had that happen. Now, touch wood, we're not going to see that, but talking to the Mutrans when we were down in the pits earlier on today, they said, look, these GT3 Cup cars are quicker than a GT down the straight because they're not carrying all that down. They don't have the corner speed of them. So, and I said to him, what about the 2 long straights here? He goes, they're not long straights in a GT car.
No,
and
it's a fair point.
It's an absolutely accurate point. And remember, they've raced Clios here, they've raced TCRs here, and so coming from all of that, getting that information going, this could well be a distance and we've got to go back through the record books to see how many laps we've had distance-wise. But, yeah, this could be a quick race and a flowing race.
Just trailing ahead to about an hour's time, the qualifying 3 session start for TCE. That's the TCR, TCX and GT4 cars. The pit lane will open at 20 minutes past 7 local time. That is in 1 hour, 2.5 minutes time. That will be Johnny Palmer and Bruce Jones who'll take you through the 2 qualifying sessions tonight. If you are just joining us, you weren't watching or listening this afternoon, first of all, why not? Second of all, over at the DSC Stadium, we've got cricket on this evening.
I'll be able to get home now.
This is the first part of one of the T20 competitions that's going on, and they're starting in a little bit of style. I wouldn't mind having a quick look at that. I don't know who's playing there this evening. If you weren't with us earlier on today, this is a new qualifying format. TCE and GT split up. Well, we've seen that before. Multiple drivers are taking part in 15-minute sessions. Well, we've seen that before. What we've not seen is it split into 2 parts for each of the categories. So we had Q1 and Q2 for both set parts of the race. That was earlier on this afternoon. 1 set of Hankook tyres to be used in that. 1 fuel load to be used in that. So the green flag goes out. The pit lane fuel station, because that's how it's done here at pit out, is closed. So what you go out the pit lane with is what you've got for that. Effectively could be half an hour, couldn't it? 2 15-minute sessions. We rinse and repeat that this evening from 20 past 7 local time. So an hour from now, we rinse and repeat that. We give them another set of Hankook Racing Slick tyres. They decide how much fuel goes into the car at the start of the session. You might decide that you only want to do 3 or 4 laps. So that's 8 laps. That means we need X amount of litres of fuel. But as we saw this afternoon, the problem with that is, Phil, you've got to give yourself a little bit of leeway in case there's a red flag when you're on your fast lap.
And we had 2 red flags, one in both sessions, and people were running out of fuel because they have to do another out lap, especially if the red flag comes on their hot lap. And then they've got to back it all down again and then go and try again, and they may have only fueled, we had cars running out down at turn 12 on the in lap at the end of the session. So yeah, it does become, team management need to do some good strategy there to work out what we're going to do. A lot of cars in the pits at the moment, but we've had over 10 minutes of this session, and if they've got 5 drivers, you want to give them 10-15 minutes in the car. Well, 5 drivers, you've got 50 minutes plus your pit stop. You're only going to get 10 minutes behind the wheel to get your 2 minutes, which is a lap.
I think what I'd be doing is getting the 2 drivers who drove this afternoon, get their 2 laps in right now, get them done, and then your 2 drivers who are going to, I presume you've only got 4 drivers, because some have got 5.
Some have got 5, yes.
Right, if you've got a driver who isn't going to be driving tonight, then they've got to do their 2 laps. So that's an out.
Two times past the flag, and then an in.
The back is it, or is it just 2 laps?
No, they have to go past the flag twice.
Okay, fine. So get that out the way, and then your 2 drivers who are going to do your night qualifying tonight, you give them what's left of the hour. Exactly. And that should be the bulk of that time.
Well, then they're going to know what the track's doing.
Correct.
Then they can come back in. They've only got a very small window to do the setup.
Evolution of this track is huge. We
Massive,
heard Sammy Mutron saying that earlier on. At RSL_studio, hello to Jerry Z. He's watching and listening from Florida, where it was a little overcast about an hour ago when he tweeted into us. Hello to Adam Wareham, excuse me, Adam. Got the weekend off to watch the Dubai 24, missing the CWS team. Hope Colin White is back to racing fitness soon. Yes, had a big accident, Colin, and broke some bones back in the UK. Colin has been a good friend to us down through the years. Both on this broadcast and even beforehand. Worked with him when I and the responsible adult were both working at Rockingham. Fantastic character, what a servant of the sport he is, and we wish him well. I'll also say as well, many of you I'm sure will have seen the very shocking and sad news about one of our former colleagues, Jenny Gow, with whom we have worked in the past, including on things like the Race of Champions. Jenny hasn't been very well. She's working back towards fitness. She had a stroke at the end of last year. We wish Jenny, Jamie and the family all the very best, and hope that she can get back to full fitness and back to work as soon as possible. We miss her. We will miss her insights. We will miss her enthusiasm, and we will miss her boundless knowledge of motorsport in general, both in Formula One and further afield. So get well soon, Jenny.
Indeed, from all of us here.
Well, part of your F1 family, if you will.
Family, indeed, yes.
You see Jenny when she's there for 5 Live for the BBC, when you're at trackside with your duties out here. 47 minutes still to go. Times, I'll give you the times. If nothing else, just to provide some context of what's been going on today. Lucas Stoltz is quickest at the moment in the Almanar Racing by HRT. He becomes only the 3rd driver today to go under 2 minutes, a 1:59.766. We had, from memory, the Phoenix Audi with Pierre Caffer and was it the Haas? No. Who was it that we were talking about who's had a great career?
Porsche Super Cup winner.
Yes. He was in the 59s as well.
Indeed, he
I cannot bring it back to my mind.
was.
Somebody will tweet it by the time we get to it.
I will get that very, very shortly for you. Dylan Pereira.
Dylan Pereira.
It just went from both of us.
I'm very sorry.
Sorry, Dylan.
I've been commentating on him for such a long time as well. We had 50 cars out at the start of the session. 10 or 8 are in the pit, 1 is in the fuel area, so 41 cars back out at the moment. How do I know that? I'm really quick at counting. No, that's not true. If you go and follow the links, get race results, or go via 248series.com, there is a plethora of information, more than we have screens in the booth. So if you've got a multi-screen setup, you can do pretty well. We've got 6, 7, 8. We've potentially got 9 screens here, and we still could not have all of the information screens, penalty screens, all of that kind of stuff.
17 screens we need, John.
And also, by the way, on the Notifies Alliance on the 0221 YouTube page, there are the onboard cameras isolated as well.
11 of them, apparently.
11 in the race. I'm not sure all of them are on the Facebook. I think there's 9 or 10 of them there. Let's, with a quarter of an hour gone, head to the pit lane and Nick Damon.
Yeah, just picking up some of the main story actually from outside the Mercedes that scratched from the qualifiers. This is our friend the 930, the QMF Porsche that is now no longer the same Porsche, but interestingly there's been a kind of a mix and match of panels, John. As you remember, they had a lovely bright blue Porsche Carrera Cup Germany car. Well, that car's still there, as you can see, but they've now got a black bonnet on it. They've taken the doors off the original 930, probably because it's easy to get the stickers across, and the boot cover as well. That's the trunk for our American listeners. So it's now becoming like one of those cars you used to see when you were young, where they'd had an accident and you had to go and visit the breaker's yard and go and get various bits that didn't quite work. So hopefully more effective. Looking like they're quite close, because obviously they still need to get these drivers qualified, though I'm sure force majeure will happen. But
the bonnet looks like it's just the carbon fibre reinforced plastic on that, Nick. It doesn't even look like it was the original one from either of the cars.
That's probably a spare. As usually, the important things happening now is they're getting the sponsor stickers on and the required stickers.
They're mandatory in the regulations.
Yeah, exactly. So
and if you look carefully, Nick, you will see one of our Creventic scrutineers down there.
He's down there. He's making sure the whole thing is in some sort of conformity with the sticker panels where they have to go, and making sure this car's okay. It's got very lovely chrome. Look at the chrome it's got on the wheel arches. This really is an absolute bitzer.
Not touching, Nick. You can't afford it.
Well, you never know. But yeah, so this is looking, and how long they got? 40 minutes. You think they would probably at least get the thing out and running. Now, of course, qualifying, there's very little point them trying to qualify because they will be at the back. But they would be able to qualify 2 of their drivers through laps that in qualifying. So they can just get the first 2 or 3 running to this session now. They could solve their problems. But a good effort, and it's always nice to have a spare car, isn't it?
You predicted that we'd see a blue QMMF car, and I think that prediction is coming true. How much of it we blew before the time. Now, Nick, one thing that you haven't told me
Yes.
is whether that's a 991 Gen 2 or a 992. I think that's a 991 Gen 2 car.
Can I tell?
Go and have a look at the rear spoiler.
Right,
Is it
okay.
a swan neck spoiler? Or is it...
Yes.
Oh, it is. Oh,
Swan neck from the front to the back.
all right.
So it's not coming over the back of it, it's going over the front.
All right. No, well, that is a 992 then.
So if it was a 991, it'd have to run in the GTX class.
Yes, they'd have to change classes.
Classes,
I'm
yeah.
sure. I mean, look, Creventic are very good. The whole point of pretty much all their rules is we want you to race as much as you can. So if you get the car back to the pit, even if you had outside assistance, even if we towed you back, put you on a flatbed, we'll get you back out again. And if you have to change categories because something goes wrong, if you have to change your car because you've bent it in practice or qualifying, we'll do our best to get you in. That is very much the Creventic mantra, isn't it, Phil?
Indeed, and that's been their mantra since they've been racing here since 2006. And it makes sense because people pay a lot of money to be here. It costs a lot to do motorsport, and having the opportunity and for somebody to say, yeah, okay, you haven't done the required practice, you haven't done this, but your drivers have been around for a long time. They've got history. We know who you are. Let's just put it out there and let's just get you out on the circuit. The other car we haven't seen, which has just gone out now, which is the 117, which had some issues with Wolf Power Racing. He's just on his out lap now.
That was getting an engine change earlier.
Indeed, so 40 minutes to go, and they are on their out lap. So that was...
So this will be rapid fire driver changes.
Yes, indeed it will.
A couple of people to say hello to. Blur Fiend, working on Porsches today over in the States, listening in and watching where I can, looking forward to the coverage of the endurance event this weekend. Blur, we wish you well and keep on doing that hard work with all those lovely Porsches. Ryan Walker's work is finished for the weekend. Suspect he's somewhere in Europe or the UK, and I plan on spending it watching the 24-hour series. You could do a lot worse.
Indeed.
Clive Lomax, in response to that, yeah, good call. I don't disagree. At RSL_studio for the weekend. It's the usual suspects here. Joe and Nick down in the pit lane for this weekend. I'll be joining them in the race for a shift. Phil Anson with me, John Hindhoff in the booth, and we'll be joined in commentary by Bruce Jones and Johnny Palmer as well at various points across the weekend. Full coverage, no breaks, all the way through. This is one of the contiguous races in terms of Creventic and indeed the coverage this weekend. No blocks, no breaks, full, no interruption coverage. Christopher Circling behind the Fark Awkward Tech 961 at the moment, going down to the far end of the circuit, turn 10, which is the furthest away from, I suppose you could call that the northern end of the circuit. We sort of look out, if that's north, south, we sort of look out towards the west, don't we? Sort of west-northwest, I would say, from our booth. Nick Damon, down in the pit lane, where are you now?
I am with our reigning champions of something, but
Europe.
also the people leading Euro Champion of Europe and the team that's leading the Middle East Championship and their interlopers. I have Shane Lewis and I have Phil Quay from the CP Racing team. Shane, first of all, a bit of a different approach in what is now your 10th year in this event for the CP, but a different bit of approach because you are one of only two AM teams in the entirety of GT3.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised that we didn't have more of them this time around, but it also kind of shows the evolution of the series where you've just got so many pro guys wanting to be here at Dubai with us. I mean, they're super competitive out there right now. Yeah, we're one of the deals, so we'll just have to see if we can take it to all the pro guys in the race.
So why did you decide for this particular ringer? Because, you know...
Well, he's definitely a ringer. Phil was with us last year. We won it. We won it in class with style, and we had to have him back, man. We just had to have him here with us again. It's a pleasure to have him on board with us. Super guy, great driver, fits really well with the team, so perfect to have him back in Dubai.
So, Phil, you've driven with a lot of teams, you've worked with a lot of teams, managed teams. What makes CP Racing different?
I think like Shane was saying, I think they're just a really nice bunch of guys. It's a very much a family feel, super professional, really competitive, and I just like to share the car with them. And like Shane said, we won the Pro-Am category last year. We finished 7th overall, and we're back here in 2023 to do the same, if not a little bit better.
A bit of a different Dubai this year. 20 less cars, but all the cars by about 5 are incredibly quick.
Absolutely. So we have a huge amount of competition in the GT3 category. Not so many slower cars, let's say GT4, but we're going to be up against the 992s, and they're a little bit quicker than us on the straight, so it's going to be quite challenging come race day.
So only 2 AMs. Is your target now really to kind of win Pro-Am then?
Well, that's a good target to have. I will say that he made a really good point, though. Survival here is going to be key till the sun comes up on Sunday. If you see that the GT3 felt is big impact, but also so is the 992s, as he mentioned. And right now, they're super fast in a straight line. So for us to work together to be fast is not easy to do. So it's going to be really survival till the morning comes up, and then we'll see if we can take it to Pro-Am guys.
So going into full AM, now by my understanding, that gives you a bit more fuel and a bit less weight, but don't you have to stick to a reference lap or something? Or is my mind completely wrong?
No, not a reference lap. We've got, I'm the old guy on the team. It is kind of really a balancing act. We got Phil with us. He's as close to a pro as you could possibly get as being a silver. But see, unfortunately for us, we have to limit his time. He's only limited, I'm not even sure, but he gets to like 6 hours. He can only drive 6. The rest of us can kind of carry on through. I think Charles might be in the same situation, 6 hours. So myself, Joe, and Charlie, we're going to pick up the remainder and carry on.
Good stuff. Good luck, and it's lovely, isn't it?
Oh, it's awesome. It's great. Thanks, man.
Thanks very much. Cheers, guys.
10th time at the event for Shane Lewis. Phil Quiff's been here a few times.
Phil
as
Quiff
well.
has won here in 2015 in the A3T category. He's been he's here a lot because he coaches one of our Renault Claire Cup competitors, Charlie Simmons, who he used to share a car with back in 12 years ago here in the local series. And he was also with down at the 6 hour at Abu Dhabi last year with the TTR team, the local TTR team in the Porsche as well. He spends a lot of his time in this region, and I know him quite well because he set my Radical up for me because he was a Radical champion previously.
Still just one driver in the sub 2 minute category, that 1:59.766 from earlier on from the 777 car. Martin Conrad's taking that car over now. It's Sebastian Bout for Abu Dhabi Racing by HRT. Al Manar Racing by HRT is the car that heads them in the table. You know what I've noticed, Phil, and you've been out here for 18 years in this part of the world. What I've been noticed, first time out here in 2007, although we think we first covered the race in 2012? 2011 or 2012, okay. So, still the best, certainly
in years,
over getting on for or just over 10 years. There has been a huge change in how this race is perceived, both here and internationally, which has brought and fostered more local drivers and more higher level local drivers. And what we've got now are teams coming from across the world, and particularly from Europe, obviously, down here in the depth of the European winter to sharpen themselves up for a European or a world season. And I think of teams of the calibre of WRT with the new BMW here, Valentino Rossi making his debut as a BMW Works driver. But I think more than anything else, what I've noticed is the calibre and the interest from local teams and drivers.
We've always had local teams and drivers in the series from our we don't have a big big type of series here, mainly because we have a transient population here. You know,
Very good point.
people come and stay for 2 or 3 years and move on.
Good point.
There's also a lot of other things to do in this region, and so people will do track racing for a while, go out in the desert, etc., etc. But we've developed some quality. We had single seaters here, which were the Ralph Furman designed cars. But that was our only single-seater championship, and basically everything else was tin tops. So,
but the single-seater championships, I mean, aside from what we're seeing in GT, we've got UAE F4 here, which is the Tatus sort of F3, the 318, isn't it? That series has now spurned or brought on the talent of 2 Formula 1 graduates.
Indeed. So 2016, we had a young Australian come across and do his first season in F4 UAE, and this year he takes his place on the grid in a McLaren F1 car, and that's Oscar Piastri. And in 2007, we had a young American come across and finish second in the championship here, and this year he is on the grid with Williams F1, and so that's Logan Sargent, and he's got a new team boss. It was just announced today as well, James Fowles for Williams Racing, replacing Jos Capito. But the single-seater evolution is actually starting to work. Okay, from 2016, we've got F4 drivers that have moved up through F3, F2, and now into F1. And when we see a 40-car grid for Formula 4 UAE, which is the largest grid, and I've been back through the records, it's one of the largest grids ever in F4 history. So look at the precedents for this region of when we get, and those guys, 6 weeks, 5 racing weekends, a lot of races in different continents. They're going up to Motortown, Kuwait, where we were in December for the 12-hour, and they head up there for 2 races, back down here to support the Asian Le Mans Series here in Dubai and at Yas Marina Circuit. And then they'll branch off to all of their respective races and championships around the world, because we start here before anybody else does.
Yeah.
And everybody, and this is what this was built to do, was to give them the leg up. They get a massive amount of races. You know, they get 3 on each weekend. That's 15 full races they get before they go. They're a rookie, you know, and when do you go into a new season as a rookie with already having 15 races under your belt? And that's why they move up so quick, and that's why it's become popular, you know, and that's what it was built to do.
We're halfway through this session. We'll go to Nick in a moment. It is Trezor Temptor Racing's Audi with the best lap. This is another sub 2 minutes, 1:59.0. Alex Arkin Aka in that car at the moment. Then Almana Racing by HRT, the 777 Mercedes. Then their teammates, the 4 car. They're both in the pits. Lucas Gronveld in the Team GP Elite, the bright orange Porsche that was very unlucky not to win at Motor Town in Kuwait in December. That Porsche number 32 for Stephanie Cox going out in the Salison by Cox Racing number 48. That number 48 car now 5th position. Anton De Pasquale, Supercars superstar for Grove Racing. There's another team who've come in to sharpen themselves up before they go to Bathurst in 3 weeks' time.
Yes, they will definitely be down at Bathurst, home country for those guys, but Grove Racing, and you know, they've been here once before as well, so they use this to help them with their endurance series.
Let's head to Nick Damon down in the pit lane. Half an hour to go, Nick.
I'm with someone doing a first half of what might be a unique double, doing the Dubai Daytona double. Ian James, Heart of Racing. But your car appears to have the wrong badge on the front.
Well, you know, Mercedes do own part of Aston Martin, so all those badges look good to me.
I suppose it's got the same engine, hasn't it? So give us an idea, what's attracted you to Dubai this year?
Well, we came last year in the GT4, you know, and one of my teammates, Gray Newell, it's his first race in a GT3 car. Dubai gets you a lot of track time, a lot of action, and it's really a great event. You know, I've been coming now for the last few years, and I love starting the year warm-up.
Yeah, but it does start a very busy period for the team. How do you manage that? I think this car just stays here. Is it a car you borrow from somewhere in the Gulf?
Yeah, this car will stay on the Creventic circuit for a while, so it'll go to Europe after this. And then, you know, our IMSA program is completely separate, so we have different equipment, cars, and people on that one.
Is it case, you obviously you've got racing this weekend, you've got some practice, and you've got racing. I mean, do you get fatigued, or is it just like extra excitement every weekend?
Well, for me it's good because it's extra mileage. I don't drive that much these days, so it's good getting ready for Daytona. The jet lag, it hits you a little bit, but anytime the heart racing be on track, we want to be there and we want to be going for the wins.
Very, very competitive field within the various subclass of GT3. Where do you feel you fit as kind of like not like newcomers who know the event but not regulars?
Yeah, so it's very competitive, and Pro-Am is one of the larger classes here in the GT3, but I won't lie, I think our goal is to be on the podium at the end of the race. I think we've got the pace and the car and the team behind us to do that.
You were here last year, you said, in the GT4. How different is a GT4 to a GT3? I mean, it's only one number, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite a big step, so last year in the GT4 you're praying that the faster cars don't catch you at the wrong time. This year you're praying you don't catch the slower cars at the wrong time, so I feel for those guys when we come thundering up behind them, but it's a good mix here and there's a great group of people driving here.
Now, one good thing for you to know, this is perfect practice for Daytona, because to the minute there is the exact same amount of dark this weekend as in Daytona in 2 weeks' time. That's a trivia question for you.
Is it?
Yeah.
12 hours?
13 hours and I think 16 minutes.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll be ready then.
There's floodlights though here, of course.
Yeah, Daytona's hardly a night race anymore. It's pretty lit up, but there are a few areas around here which are pitch black, so it's definitely a challenge. But we love the Creventic series. We appreciate our partnership with SPS here, and we're looking forward to it. Looking forward to it tomorrow.
Great stuff, Ian. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Yeah, Ian was here with Alex Riberas, of course, last year, and I should have remembered that because I spoke to Alex in the pit lane. My apologies for that, but they were in a GT4 car. SPS, of course, great history in the Hankook Creventic Endurance Series. Just underlining what we're saying about the local cars. Abu Dhabi Racing by HRT, the number 3. The third in class, rather, number 4, 992. Hubert Haupt of HRT in behind the wheel of that number 4 car at the moment, as he's out on the far side of the circuit, just swinging right-handed through turn 10 into turn 11. No, he likes from the middle of the road there. No, I'll tell a lie. He was coming out of 6 into 7 and now into 8 and 9. There's a car out there at the moment, and I think it's one of the TCR cars without any rear lights. The 199.
Is that the car is just going past?
Yes, it is. And that car's being told to pit immediately.
Yes.
No rear lights. And the point that Ian James was making of Heart of Racing there is there are some places here that are exceptionally dark. This is not a full lit track. It was never meant to be. We race at some circuits around this area, and it is dear. Like when we race WEC at Bahrain, for example, they only put half the lights on that they put on for the Grand Prix circuit. It's still fine. I sort of liked the halfway house at Kuwait Motor Town.
Oh, most definitely, yeah.
Lower level lighting, almost like street lighting, just probably maybe 3 lights in the space that you would have 2 on a normal street. And I thought that worked really well, actually.
Well, talking to the drivers, they actually really enjoyed it because there was not a lot of eye strain. You had some light there, but the way they had those curbs marked with that white stripe, so you could pick that up going in there. And, because of the undulations of that track, you had a lot of blind crests and corners.
Good point.
And so you always had a little point that your corner lights would pick up, which is really good. We're seeing we were just on board there with Hubert Hupp, but Khaled Al-Kabasi's on board with that car. Now, he's a multiple champion here. He's been on the podium at Le Mans 24 Hour, so there is a lot of experience in that number 4 team. I just want to catch on one more entirely local team, John, and that's the Rabdan Motorsport team in the 977 car. Now, remember them from last year. They crashed on Monday, wrote the car off, bought a new car on Tuesday, came out on Wednesday, bent the car, qualified Thursday, raced Friday, finished Saturday, turned up in Abu Dhabi the next week. And I interviewed Said Al-Mahiri on there. All of those drivers all came out of the TRD 86 Cup from here, except for Said Al-Mahiri, who raced here in the Porsche Cup Challenge Middle East. And so they're on a steep learning curve from a TRD 86 to a 992 Porsche is a pretty massive learning curve, but they're doing really well. We're very, very pleased. All Emirati lineup.
By the way, in that Heart of Racing by SPS Mercedes-AMG GT3, as Nick rightly says, uses the same 4-litre V8 twin turbocharged engine as the Aston Martin Vantage in the road car and, of course, in the race car. Although Aston Martin do make some substantial tuning changes to that car, and it's not all electronic either. Quite a bit more than I think even Aston Martin thought they would be allowed to for the road cars and therefore for the race cars. Roscoe behind the wheel of that car at the moment. And if you were wondering what Nick was talking about to his teammate Ian James a wee while ago, the sunset here on Saturday is at 10 minutes before 6 and sunrise is at 6 minutes after 7 o'clock in the morning. So that's 13 hours and 16 minutes. And at Daytona, the sunset is at 6 o'clock in the evening on Saturday night, and the sunrise is at 7:16. By my reckoning, that's 13 hours and 16 minutes. Now compare that to Le Mans coming up this year, the 100th anniversary of the first Le Mans, and official sunset is just before 10 o'clock, 3 minutes before 10, and sunrise is a minute before 6. That's 8 hours and 2 minutes. So that's
5 hour difference.
So that's a 5-hour difference, yes, between the start of the year and the middle of the year. 24-hour races, 3 24-hour races there, 3 very different circuits and 3 very different characters and atmospheres to these 3 races. They're all 24-hour races. They all have a similar challenge in terms of endurance, but not perhaps in exactly how they play out and certainly how they look and feel for the drivers. Hubert Howe's just staying out the way of some faster cars. He comes down into the
60.
speed pool, and we've got code 60
at the moment. We're just looking for where that may be.
Now, code 60, if you're not a regular, we don't have safety cars here. Think of this as a virtual safety car. The Dutch Supercar Championship and here in Creventic have run these virtual safety cars, code 60, for a very long time. Pioneered this. You'll see around the circuits the purple flags with the cross through and the 60 in the middle. The 60 just means 60 kilometers an hour. Everything else basically is a full course yellow. So basically what you have is slow down to 60 kilometers an hour. You can't overtake anybody. Now there have been some changes in what you can do in the pit lane. It always used to be that under code 60, if you were in the pits when the code 60 came, you could take full fuel. If you came in while code 60 was on, you could only take half fuel. Now, the bad luck is, even if you get in before the code 60 is called, but you are in the pit lane or even headed to the fueling station, when the purple flags come out, you can only take half of your allotted fuel. All these cars, by the way, as part of the performance balancing, have a fuel amount that they are allowed to fill at a single visit to the fuel station. And it is a fuel station. It's a petrol station at the end of the pit lane with normal pistol grip pumps as you would get filled up at your local supermarket or your service station. It is almost never the size of your tank. So for sake of argument, let's say that your car has a 130 litre tank. Your fuel allowance might be 110 litres. So you can start the car with 130 litres, but when you come in under green flag, you can only put 110 litres in. So what you will see people doing, even if they are nowhere near empty, but there's enough to get half a tank of fuel in under code 60 during the race, you will see people doing that. So again, take that. If you've got 130 litres in your tank capacity and you've been out there for somewhere near half your stint, maybe a little bit more, if you can squeeze 55 litres in because your normal green flag allowance is 110, then you come in.
Yeah.
And that might take you over 110 litres, but that's all right. So long, you want to get as close as you can again back to that 130. What that does is that stretches your strategic opportunities. There is a driver time limit. No driver can be in the car more than 2 hours
That's
straight
correct.
through.
Yep.
And there are also time limits for various drivers of various categories, whether they are AM, semi-pro, AM plus, AM plus, semi-pro or pro.
Yeah, and the way that it works is that it is your balance of performance, and so what your car is entered as, whether it would be a GT3, a GT3 Pro Am, a GT3 Am, dictates the quality of the rating of your drivers, and then you have the times that those drivers are allowed. And when we were talking to CP Racing, when we were talking to the guys down in the pits, it's about how much of the race can you do. Like, the pros are very limited in some of the categories. They're only allowed to do a maximum. If you have 2 pros, some of them are only allowed a maximum combined to do a third of the race in a 24-hour race. That's 8 hours, so a maximum of 4 hours driving time for your pros. The other side of this is, when you're an AM driver, the regulations are going to come down to, we've got a long code 60 because we've got barrier repairs. We're going to throw you into the car to use up your time, so we're not wasting our semi-pro or pro's time. When you're an AM driver, you accept that. That's part of endurance racing, and it's you can see in the dash there on board with Rick, and all the cars have these. It shows when when we go code 60 that they have all the telemetry there for the timing system, and so it shows everybody that there is code 60 happening.
So you won't see a safety car. You may see circuit vehicles, but during the race, you will not see a safety car out there. The drivers are left to their own devices. Code 60, the reason it was, and we just, now, here's what is great about Code 60. We haven't had to wait for a wave by, a pass around, pick up the leader, wait for the leader, wait for everybody. No, everything's okay, then the green flag goes on again. Now, race control will be counting down to the teams, and therefore they can count down to their drivers. So it's not just potluck about where you are on the circuit, but it does mean that you can get back to green very, very quickly. The drivers are left to their own devices in terms of pacing themselves. They all have instrumentation in the cockpits of these cars, and the reason that 60 kilometers an hour was chosen is because it's dead easy to work out, because you know how far around the circuit is, and this track
5.39
Zero,
yeah.
So that's 5.39 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the easy way to work it out. You work that out in seconds, and then you've got an exact time that you know you have to do to stay under the code 60 speed limit. The pit lane is left open, so any work that you do in the pit lane, that obviously is allowed. So if you want to change your drive and your tyres, remember what I said about the fuel. You can even soak up penalties under a code 60 during the race. However, and this is a big however, if you have a 20-second penalty and you take it under a code 60, you're stationary in the penalty box, which is on the way into the pit lane, pretty much right underneath where we are standing. We're looking at it scrolled out on the pit lane apron there. If it's a 20-second penalty, it's doubled to 40 seconds. Now, Brain's very much greater and cleverer than ours, and by that I'm looking at you, Paul Truswell, down in the Red Camel Jordan .NL 909 Porsche pit, tells me that it is always worth soaking up some of your penalties during Code 60, even though it is doubled in time.
And the same thing applies, John. If you pull up to the penalty box and it's green, the minute you start the clock, you're okay. But if you haven't started your clock and it goes code 60, you're double.
You have to double it.
The same goes with the fueling area. If you have activated the gun, is when.
Right.
So if you've pulled in there and you're just about to plug the gun in and it goes code 60, you're on 50%. Yeah. If you've started flow, that's where it works now. So it's been very much ratified on how it works when the code 60 is called. And as we saw there, the race director will count down to all the posts around the track and everything goes green at the same time. So your little light inside will go from purple to green. Brilliant system, absolutely brilliant.
11 on boards this year, and they will run right the way through the race. If you've got multiple screens back at home, or perhaps you've got a favourite car. Sarah Rigby's very happy to know that Harter Racing, the number 27 car, has got an onboard. Head over to the 0221 YouTube page. I did tweet the link earlier on today via RSL_studio. I'll try and find that again, or the responsible adult will, and get that retweeted as well, so that you can see that, decide which cars to watch or have a few on. Let's head down to the pit lane. WRT, Vincent Voss's team. 2 brand new BMWs. Nick Damon is down there as the car's in the pits.
In a situation, having a quick chat about having a word with the doctor himself. So we're just going through the process of making sure that's going to be okay. As you see, it's quite interesting actually, because it's as you said earlier, Valentine's sponge. He's literally taking everything. He's taking debriefs with the teammates from both cars. He's just chatting with Max Hess. He's chatting with Maxime Martin. And yeah, so it's going good. So I'm just trying to see if we can just grab a. They're asking some quick words. I don't know, it's exciting, this, isn't it? It's 20 minutes. I don't know. Oh, there's a pit wall, I just say hello. I got a very nice wink there from his female manager. It's going well.
He's just doing a bit of debriefing in the pit lane at the moment. W Racing team. And I think Nick's going to get a word with Valentino Rossi in his first car race for BMW.
Valentino, your first car race for BMW. You've done your qualifying session earlier. How do you feel it went?
I can do better. I have some problem with the traffic, with the red flag and everything, but for everybody it's the same. And now we are not in a fantastic position. We are P11, but in 1 hour we will have the Q3 with Sean and the Q4 with Max. So we hope that they can make 2 very good laps and we can start a little bit more in front.
How have you found the conversion from the Audi, which is mid-engine, to the front-engined BMW? So obviously you haven't got a huge amount of experience on this.
Yeah, the cars are very, very different, especially about the engine, because the BMW is turbo and the Audi no, and also the position on the engine. You have to drive differently, but I like a lot the BMW, and looks that is more easy.
We know you're now an official BMW factory driver. What is the ambition? Is it Le Mans in 2025, or is that really what you're aiming for? A couple of years' time and you'll be at Le Mans?
Yeah. Le Mans is one target, but especially is to try to be fast and try to fight for the podium, and especially this. Yes, and after we will see. I would like to go to Le Mans. Yeah.
How much are you learning every time you're in the car? Are you still is it like a new experience every time, or do you have a good?
Yeah, I learn a lot from the team that have a lot of data, and also from my teammates, that top guys, so I can check the data, check the video for understand the way to drive. These cars are difficult to drive. You need to understand some small tricks, but they are very funny.
Valentino, fantastic. Speak to you in the race. Thank you.
Grazie.
Ciao.
Ciao, grazie.
He's
passionate.
But for all of motorsport, Phil,
yes.
You know, I've had the opportunity to speak to him at MotoGP events. I wanted to go to Silverstone. Even I went to Silverstone to see his last MotoGP race at Silverstone, and we had a great time. He strikes me always, in anything that we've done with him, in anything that we've seen done with him, he is, as Jeremy Shaw, my IMSA radio colleague, would say, he's a student of the sport. And by that I mean motorsport. I mean, he's raced down at Yazzie, him and his friends, at a very different level than what he's doing now, absolutely. But, you know, there was a Ferrari that he and his friends would turn and do the double 6-hour race down there. He jumped in. Vincent Voss pulled an absolute coup by talking to him, by finding out what he wanted to do. Of course, everybody wanted him, but quite a lot of manufacturers were only interested in for his star power and
marketability.
And his social media. Vincent Voss went and asked him, what do you want to achieve by doing this if you go on motor racing? And had a sensible chat with him. Sneaked him into a little test with Audi. They've since become a BMW factory team. and therefore he's brought Valentino over. Valentino's now a factory driver, and coming out of BMW this week from their head of motorsport, that a run in the prototype is not out of the question. And now whether that's a test, whether that's moving towards something in 25 or 26 at Le Mans, we know that the BMW will be at Le Mans in the hands, the prototype in the hands of WRT next year. It's very interesting.
His passion is it's boundless. It's just so good. You see him down there. You put it into context. He's 9-time world champion, 1/125 win, 250 two-stroke, 500cc two-stroke, and then 6 MotoGP wins. And he's still learning from his teammates. He's still that sponge. And he's the quintessential person that you want on your team, because he doesn't bring all of that with him. That surrounds him, but he doesn't bring it with him for the team. He brings his partnership, and he brings, I'm part of the team. I'm not the team. And that's the most important thing that I've seen. Just a quick update. The 930 is on track.
Oh, wow.
Daniel Ross is at the wheel of the QMF by HRT. So they are currently 27th and 8th in class at the moment. So great work from that team.
Ah, brilliant. That is very good indeed. We have 40... Oh, no, sorry. But that was the time at the top of the screen there. We have 6 3/4 minutes to go. Fastest car out there at the moment, still the 1:59.0. In fact, actually, that is a... that came in earlier on from Tesla Attemptor.
Yeah.
But splitting now, the 2 HRT cars, Earl Bamber in the Grove Racing number 10 Porsche, a 1:59.795 last time around. Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
I am with one of the 2 men who I always think about when I think about the start of Creventic. They're both Dutch. One's Peter Cox, who I want to speak to later. The other one, Jeroen Bleekemoen, the hardest working man in motor racing. And this week in a GT4 BMW. How's that happened?
Yeah, no, suddenly I'm here, but it's good fun. My Dutch fellow Danny van Dongen couldn't make it, and he usually is on this car, so then they asked if I could do it, and obviously yes. I mean, I love Dubai. It's a great race. It's for me the 16th time, so why not?
You're constantly hopping from chassis to chassis, from class to class. How many laps does it take you to dial yourself into a new car and then, class faster or class slower?
Well, I think in a GT4 it's a bit easier than a GT3 because it goes all a bit slower, but in the end I think also all the GT4s and GT3s are getting more and more similar to each other. I just ran the new Porsche GT3R in Daytona a couple of weeks ago, and great car, but it feels very similar to all the other GT3s.
I mean, one thing you say you've done 16 Dubais, but this one, of course, we've got a much lower car count. But you're actually going to be one of the slowest cars. How do you approach that?
Yeah, that's not easy, to be honest. You're just watching the mirrors all the time and you try to time it right so that people can pass you in the right place. Because if they pass you in the wrong place, then you lose also yourself a lot of time. So it's a different game than being in the fastest class.
Joe, fantastic to see you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to see him here. And he's absolutely right, by the way. Those GT3 cars come up on you very quickly on a GT4 car, and you don't want to ruin anybody else's race. The other thing is, it's because it is dark here, Phil, then you've got to decide pretty quickly which side they're coming up on, particularly through the twistings.
The race director here has always said, and it's in the Creventic method statement, that this is about anybody who is doing the overtaking, you have to find your way around, okay? And that is on page 1, okay? It's about gentlemen and sportsman drivers, and it's about not making their life difficult and making every team's got a right to be on the track. And so if you just hold your line, it's up to them. What these guys are talking about is a bit more about their own pace of getting caught out in a corner, being offline, getting onto the marbles, and then having to clean up their tyres after 2 or 3 corners and whatever, and they may be battling with somebody who can get some time back on them. So they're looking in there for a strategic advantage rather than anything else.
Yeah. Totally. There is a skill to being passed as much as there is a skill to doing the passing.
Indeed.
We've said this for many years. I've also said, and I'll probably say this several more times over the weekend.
I'll count them.
That you can only learn multi-class racing by doing multi-class racing. You can be the best single manufacturer driver in the world, and then when you get into a race with 54 cars in, 7 different categories, that is a completely different experience for you. Roman De Angelis finding out about that. He came out of Porsche racing in North America very quick indeed. Been with Harter Racing for a little while now in the SPS Harter Racing Mercedes, coming down across the line in front of us, and that V8 rumbles past us down towards the first corner. Onboard camera just rattling around a little bit in that car. Almost feels like it's tipping itself into the corners. Not sure where that is fastened to. 2.5 minutes to go. Let's take an update from Nick Damon.
With the Willie Motorsports by EB Motors 955 Porsche, the 992 car, they have a very expensive next couple of hours because they're changing their clutch, and the local Porsche centre quoted them over £3,000 for that. Yeah, they've blown the clutch. You can see there is there is a brand new gearbox on the floor here. There's a man with the gearbox jack is underneath the car, and they're already wangling as many of the nuts off as possible. But
so Nick, are they going to just do the whole unit? They're going to take the gearbox out and put the new put the new clutch in and do a new box as well?
They're just doing the whole thing at once. Perhaps they feel the clutch failure may be indicative, or may have...
The clutch is on the flywheel, not on the gearbox, don't forget.
Oh, is it? Okay. I mean, they are also, obviously, this gives them new drive shaft outputs as well, so I would assume it's a better safe than sorry situation in case the failure of the clutch or the failure in that element of the drivetrain has had a bit of a cascading effect. So they'll, I'm sure, take that gearbox out, John, and have a thorough look at it before it becomes a spare.
This team, Nick, have come up through the ranks of Creventic Racing, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, they've done really, really well. They've moved up even as recently as the Q8 race at the end of November. They were in the previous generation car, weren't they? They were in a 991 version of the Cup car. I think on their own, I think, or perhaps with another car. But now they've moved up into the hyper-competitive 992 Cup class. But they've been very successful. They put out a great car. This car is very, very colourful, as you can see from the wrap. More importantly, we can't see. Well, you can't see it at all if you're on radio. I mean, you can't see if you're watching on the television. They've got a complete... They've got one of those LED strips down. They kind of funky LED strips. Running all the way over the bodywork and up through the wing... the mounts for the wings. It goes up and over the swan neck, and that was running some pretty funky blue and green colours earlier on.
They did that in Kuwait as well, if you remember.
Yes.
But of course, with the swan neck, it works so much better. It flows up and over, you see. So it's not just aerodynamic, it's also aesthetic.
No, I like aerodramatic.
Well, that's me, love. But the thing about it really is, unfortunately, it's going to mean there's no way they'll be able to get out for qualifying, because those two units start in 15 minutes, and changing a gearbox, however good you are on any car, and certainly not a 911 derivative, is not the work of a few minutes. But they'll be fine for tomorrow, so that's good news.
What I want you to do is go and have a look under the back of that Porsche. Okay. I know we can't get the camera all the way in, but I just want you to see how big that engine is, because everybody thinks that with it being a flat six, it's teeny tiny. There's no turbos on that one. It's a 4 litre.
Yeah. Yeah, well, one thing I would say is this is the point about anyone who's seen a modern Porsche knows that actually just because you own it doesn't mean you're allowed to look at the engine, does it? You have a flap which you fill up some fluids, and it's pretty much the same on the race car. Effectively, you can only see it from underneath. Above the car, where the booty, bonnety, trunky thing is, there are a number of electrical connectors and a couple of filling points.
That's it.
There is no point. Everything has to be done from underneath. So there we go.
And that's the venerable flat 6 4 litre normally aspirated engine in that car. It goes out to almost 4.2, but not quite 4.2 for the new GT3R in the 992 body shape. Also tilted quite a lot in that new GT3. So the back of the engine, the front of the engine is down and the back of the engine is up, and that's so they can get more diffuser underneath that car.
That team also the only team running 3 drivers.
Oh, and are we sure they're only running 3?
On both of my entry lists, it's 3 at the moment. The latest one I got. We'll double check it for tomorrow.
Checker flag is out. Nobody beat the time set earlier by Tresor Attemptor Racing's Audi. Big Audi presence here. Finley Hutchinson brought that car into the pits. Second for Mercedes and for Heart of Racing, Roman De Angelis in the fuel stop at the moment. Axel Jeffries, Almanna Racing, he took the checkered flag for them in third. Grove Racing, Earl Bamber's time, good enough for fourth now. And the top four all under 2 minutes. 7/10 between the top four though. First of the cars just outside 2 minutes is the Abu Dhabi Racing by HRT number 4 Mercedes. And another Porsche, the bright orange GP Elite. I'm telling you, watch out for that car. Watch out for that car. Then it's Herbeth Motorsport back in the championship with the Renault brothers, of course, the number 91 car in fourth position. Dennis Ratera for the Salokin by Cox Racing Porsche. He took the checkered flag in eighth position. Sean Galale for Team WRT in an M4 GT3, the number 46. Guess whose car that is. Jean-Bernard Bouvet, Vision Ferrari. So Audi, Mercedes, Porsche, Mercedes, Porsche, BMW, Ferrari for the top 10. And the Pro-Am leader is in second place in that session. I'll give you a couple of other class leaders. 992 class led by Dual Racing by Toro Verde. Ramsey Mutran was last in that car. 204.31 radio. And 304.310, sorry. And then we have, where's the best of the AMs there? That's the Seb Lejeune Racing by Duo Racing. That's another Porsche, of course. GTX was the Razun Mordan Racing Crossport GTX, Leo Pickler. And in the TC, can you quickly have a look at the TC classes for me in GT4?
TCE AC Motorsport, not Sam Dongi in that one in TCE1. Then in looking up my list as well, so that was TCE, that was it, and obviously a TCR. Second in that one was the Wolf Power Racing, David Presley at that one, and third in TCE was the TCX, which is the Team Sport, Ram Sport, the only Porsche 718 Cayman out there at the moment, and that's TC done. And just looking at the GTX category, did you cover that one, John?
GTX, yes.
Yeah,
KTM Crossbow. So that's it. That's Charlotte.
That it is indeed. That's everybody out there, and we had 52 cars take to the track for that 1 hour session.
Out of what we were expecting to see was 53.
Yes. So
remember the 488.
The
Mercedes of Dragon Racing is gone. Their other car of the 408, right at the end of pit lane, the final pit before you go out onto the track or through into fuel. That car's still there. Now, coming up next, let me remind you. 2 more 15-minute sessions. First for the TCRs, the TCX and the GT4 cars. Single driver. The car gets a set of brand new tyres from Hankook. You fill the car or put as much fuel in as you feel is requisite for what you need to do. That will have to last you for the 2 qualifying sessions. Those are the last 2 pieces of the jigsaw puzzle that will be added to the times that we had earlier on today. The average then will set your grid position. And then we do exactly the same for the GT cars as well. Beautiful evening here at Dubai Autodrome. And the action continues. It's all live and free here for the start of 2023's International Endurance Hankook 24-hour series. So just waiting for the cars to be... Oh, I see what they've done. They've taken them into the fuel and then they're allowed to push them back, not drive them back down through the pit lane.
They can't afford to waste the fuel.
Well, that's probably a very good point. They'll have picked it up. Nick Damon will be replaced in the pit lane by Joe Bradley. And in a couple of seconds... where we will be moving over to Bruce Jones and to Johnny Palmer. So let's just remind you of some of those times that we were talking about a few moments ago. As the darkness has been with us for, a couple of hours Now, Trezor Attemptor Racing, best of everybody with that 159.0. Heart of Racing by SPS in second. Third, also under 2 minutes, Almanar Racing by HRT. And the fourth and final car under that magic 2 minutes, 20 laps. On the 20th of 22 laps was Earl Bamber for the Porsche of Grove Racing. Best of the Pro-Am was that second place car. Best AM car in the GT is a little bit further down. The top 8 made up by the Salichin by Cox Racing GT3 machine. In 9th, Team WRT, the first of the BMWs. And in 10th, Christa Jons for Phoenix Racing, the number 1 car. Just wait for that to flip over for you to see that. We didn't go down much beyond the top 5 or 6, the top 10 rather, before. And in the other classes, further down the field in Team WRT, the second of their cars in 12th position. And picking out 1 or 2. Herbert, the second Herbert car. We do have the 2 Herberts, 91 and 92. That's the American crewed car. Adam Adelson. Great story about him. He is a big Jimmy Johnson fan, and Jimmy Johnson took part in a Porsche Carrera Cup North America race. Of course, he wanted to run the 48. Adam Adelson had been running that number. He graciously handed it over to one of his racing idols, and Jimmy repaid him by signing his car, which I thought was great.
Brilliant.
Jason Hart, Alex Skier, and Seth Lucas in that US Herbert Motorsport machine. Maxime Soule, a driver that we know is doing the trifecta with Dubai, Daytona and Bathurst. Do, Day, Bat is the triple. Pulsar Motorsports in 16th position for their BMW. 17th is the AM leader, the McLaren 720S, that very highly coloured car from 7T6 GT3. James Cottingham amongst that. And there's the leader in class for GT3 Cup. That's Dual Racing in 22nd position. Ahead of Red Camel Racing and Seb Lajour Racing by Duo Racing in 3rd in that very, very competitive Cup class. That's about half of our field. Speed Lover, Veely Motorsports, Rabdam Motorsports, 6th in class. I think they'll be quite pleased with that. 2 QMF cars got out there, which is impressive, and HRT in 32nd. There's the Crossbow in 31st. And they're the GTX. Paul, in TCE AC Motorsports, they had a fraught afternoon with both cars in problems. The 188 recovering to the best time there for those guys. Wolf Power, Team Zorg Rennsport, and Wolf Power Racing with their car that hasn't had an engine change ahead of AC Motorsports, and the 700 miles French team as well in 6th position.
the Autodrome and the third and fourth parts of a split qualifying, because this is a brand new format for 2023 and the 18th edition of the Hankook 24 Hours of Dubai. Yes, we've got separate 15-minute sessions for quali, but the first two held in daylight hours, these latter two held in the evening with entirely separate drivers as well. You have to add the times together and then split them back to form an aggregate, but this for me is a very intriguing part of the 2023 event. Qualifying 3 already underway live here on RS1, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels. We've also had a bit of a shift change from earlier qualifying. Hopefully you've managed to catch up on that, and if not, we'll give you a recap of the times anyway. But for Q3 and Q4 tonight, it's me, Johnny Palmer, Bruce Jones, and looking after matters in the pit lane, Joe Bradley, who we'll be hearing from very shortly indeed. But brand new format for a brand new year. I kind of like this, Bruce.
So far, so good. Half an lap into the first of the night qualifying sessions. I think it's really good. We were talking about this before these sessions, qualifying sessions 3 and 4 got underway, before we came back on air. But it's about an aggregate. I said I like this 15-minute sessions. It's quickfire, but you said, yeah, but it's quickfire spread out across about 6 hours. Yeah. Valid point. But I know whenever you've got a 24-hour race, people go, qualifying isn't really that important. But you probably nominated your drivers in driver 1, driver 2, 3, 4 positions before you came here, and you might go, oh, actually, drivers 1 and 2 might have been better in the sort of darker sessions in night. And whenever you speak to drivers, we heard earlier from Ian James just talking about how dark it is. He said some circuits like Daytona, where quite a few of the drivers will be in a couple of weeks' time, in fact, in a week's time to go for the Raw, it's almost like daylight. The floodlighting is so good, but here at Dubai, at least half the circuit is in proper darkness. Of course, they're going to have, what did we say, 13 and a quarter hours of darkness, exactly the same, believe it or not, to the minute, as they will have at the Daytona 24 hours. But there's a lot of dark, and it's a lot of proper dark. So if it's your first time here, you'll have had to do the walk in the day, look at your possible braking points and find out where they are at night. It's not as easy as has been said. Yes, they've had night practice, but now with quickfire, we're into this. Of course, I can talk for a little bit because they're on the outlap, so they'll build up towards speed. But 438 was the fastest car in the GT, in the sort of GT4 class, and that was the BMW from that went so well. It was James Kell who set that times, and that was a Simpson Motorsport car. But they've got 5 drivers down for that, so one maybe will miss out, or maybe some have dropped down. I'll look for the latest list, but at the moment they're shuffling around, and Benjamin Goethe, car 408, appears to be the fastest on the track. Early days, but they're not long days. That's the Rothko with Dragon Racing Mercedes, and one of 3 Goethes in the family, 2 of the racing sons, Benjamin and Oliver, joining up with their father.
Now, I say always, historically, whilst we've had this split qualifying session, the first session of normally 3, but this weekend it is 4, that was an AM-only session, and I do believe, looking at the times, it was David Holloway who was fastest in Q1 in this category of the entry, so the TCE and the GT4s combined. Holloway's time in the 438 BMW at 2:10.508. In the following session, the 438 did a 2:11, so it's actually slightly slower. However, Brett Strom topped the session with a quicker time, and by 1.4 seconds in the 450 BMW. So session to session earlier, session 1 to session 2, 2 was the quicker one. We might even, now with the conditions giving us a helping hand as well, it'd be a little bit cooler out there and cars just generally go faster at night. This might be the fastest session so far. We'll have to wait and see. A 2:11.411, one of the first though to pop up in these times. Give you drivers as well, because Ben Goethe is piloting the 408 Rothko with Dragon Racing BMW. Mercedes, I should say. What's wrong with that? Mercedes AMG GT4. That's the Emirati entered car. And there is now a BMW at the top of the times, because Jeroen Blekemolen, who we were hearing from in the previous session late on with Nick Damon, the 450 car, Jeroen getting a very late call to be part of that team, RHC Jorgensen Strom by Century, and their BMW M4 GT4, the F82 spec Beamer, goes quickest by Now, I can give you average times, of course, and I can give you times within this session. It was a 2:09.182 for Blake and Molan, so that's 0.4 of a second faster. But already we're getting, in a sense, a 3-lap average. That won't become an official average time until we've got the 4th and final time, though, logged in the next 15-minute session. I hope you're keeping up. Jasmine Preissig is quickest so far in the TCE element of this qualifying session. She's in the 121 Wolf Power Racing Audi RS3 and always quick, the young Swiss driver.
Yeah, I see a lot of her competing in the Nürburgring long distance races, of which there are typically 8 throughout the year, and certainly multi-class racing is her thing, but she is very, very good indeed. But it's properly dark around the back of the circuit. You can make out the lights, the illuminated number panels on the doors, and some Nick Damon was talking about the sort of LED lights around some of the windows to help pick out the cars. But at various points out at the back of the circuit, you can make out the headlights, the tail lights, and precious little else. So the camera crews really earn their keep. The end of a long day, and I tell you, RSL have been covering this event for a decade now, but the way the support races have grown like Topsy, you know, the level of them has been phenomenal. Formula 4, Formula Renault, the really good Renault Clio action as well. So it's a busy, busy track for 3 days. Well, 4 days, because the cars were out again yesterday.
Yeah, and yeah, you can extend the weekend with the optional sessions as well. There was a free practice session at the start of the weekend. That was part of the meeting, as far as I can read, and Jules Gounon topped that for Abu Dhabi Racing by HRT in their Mercedes. 158.7 from that session. We haven't gone as quick as that so far in these qualies, or indeed night practice earlier on either, although we were into the low 159s a short moment ago in that hour-long free practice session, night free practice session. But the difference between that and this 15-minute dash is that it very much counts to where the cars will start in their grid order tomorrow afternoon.
One thing that always strikes me, and particularly with a circuit that's light and dark as this one is, the Dubai Autodrome, is you know where to place the car in multi-class racing in daylight, but what you don't always learn until you get out there is just how close a faster car is. According to, you know, its headlights might be dazzling you, how much space to give them, how close really were they. So you have to keep on learning. At the same time, you're trying to set a really good flying lap. And right now, hopefully the cars are spaced out enough. In fact, with 11 of them in this session, there's plenty of space around this circuit for them to not trip over each other and waste a flying lap. But in the end, it's you know, one flying lap counts in this session to combine with number 2, sessions 1 and 2. We've got session 4 to follow. They're only 15 minutes each, but a little trip up can have a problem. Certainly can make things tricky.
5 minutes just under to go. Bruce Jones and Johnny Palmer looking after matters in the commentary box. And as mentioned at the top of the show, we've got Joe Bradley for company from the pit lane. What do you know, Joe, with, well, 2/3 of the session now already gone?
Yeah, we're well into qualifying. Welcome to Dubai, guys. Great to hear your voices. I've just been clarifying something for, well, quite frankly, our benefit. So the 2 sessions qualifying, this slightly different format now. 2 sessions, 2 drivers earlier this afternoon, out on a fresh set of tyres this earlier this afternoon. We weren't allowed to put the pro driver on the fresh set. So first of all, we saw an AM driver take the wheel of the car. Then the teams had the option to use the pro driver for what's effectively a used set of tyres. Now this evening, it's basically a brand new set of tyres, but you can use a pro driver. So some of the teams maybe have held their pro driver back for the start of this evening's session, which is basically, and the reason behind that is, of course, not to optimise the run. However, this evening, and I've just been clarifying that with CP Racing, they are going to have an optimised run later on when we see the GTs out. At the moment, we're going to effectively have seen that in the TCE categories as well, GT4 and TCR. So they're going to optimise their run with a fresh set for this evening, and they're going to run their pro drivers. They're going to have to. I would. Anybody with an ounce of sense?
No, it makes perfect sense to me. And of course, what you can't do is use the same pro driver in more than one session. There is a slight grey area in that, and according to Phil Hanson, there's only one team doing this, approaching the race with three drivers. So they will have to repeat at least one of those at Villi Motorsport by Ebby Motors, because they've got Fabrizio Broggi, this is the normal lineup for them, Fabrizio Broggi, Nicolai Sergui and Sabino Di Castro. So there must be somebody at the 955 Porsche 992 car that has been nominated for 2 sessions. The other 2 drivers do 1, and no other team has got that problem in that they've got at least 4, and some teams have 5 drivers in fact. So somebody's going to miss out in that case. But to my mind, it is a different driver for each of the 4 sessions, unless you're driving the 955 Porsche.
Again, things the crews need to think about. Now, who's going fast? As Joe pointed out, it probably makes sense to get your best pro, not in the day session when they can't use fresh rubber, but right now. And we heard from him earlier. He's top of the charts as the clock counts down. Only 2 minutes remain in this 50-minute session. One Jay Blakemolen, top of the tree in the number 450 BMW, which is RHC Jorgensen Strom by Century, BMW M4 GT4. Benjamin Goethe, one of the young sons of Roels, who's had a lot of GT experience. He's second fastest. Going down to the TCE class, I noticed the initial R and the surname Huff. He's only 4th in class, but I think Rob's a little late out onto the track relative to the others, and expect him to work his way to the front of the TCE class. And it's great to see Rob still plying his trade around the world. He's driving one of those Wolf Power Audis, and let's see, but at the moment it's Jasmine Pricing. You talked very early on, Johnny. She's topping the session, the Swiss driver in the TCR class, that is.
The worry for Rob Huff and the rest in the 117 is that it didn't record a time, car 117, in qualifying 2, as far as I read it. They were second fastest in Q1, didn't feature in Q2. What happens there if you have a mechanical drama at some point? As again, it's a long day, and it's not just a case of turning up for one 50-minute qualifying session. The car's got to do effectively an hour's worth of qualifying when you add all 4 sessions together.
And throw in night practice in between. But yeah, there's a point. You just divide your average across 3? No, simply because otherwise you don't send your driver out for one session. Your fastest driver would do this session, the fastest driver on the fresh set of tyres. But I'm sure if we delve into the rule book, we'll find it out. But it's quick fire. We've only got just over half a minute to go until the session will come to an end, until the checkered flag will be waved. And then we will have these cars back on track after only a 5-minute break, Johnny, with driver number 4 in all of these lineups. And then we'll have a 10-minute break, and then we'll get the quick ones, the really quick cars in GT3. And at the top, going to see what they can do.
Yeah, 2 cars didn't feature in either of the first 2 qualifying sessions today of these classes. So 199, the AC Motorsport Audi for TCR, and the 488 Dragon Racing Mercedes number 488 in GT4. And then there was the 188 car, which came out for a couple of laps but didn't post a flying lap. And as I say, we lost 1 car session to session, which was the Rob Huff and the Menden Wolf Power Racing Audi. So there's certainly been some difficulties already through the course of the day. That's not including night practice. The checkered flag, though, is now being waved, and very little change from the times that Bruce was reeling off with about a minute and a half to go. Jeroen Blekemolen that confident that his 2:27.8, no, quicker than that, wasn't it? It was a 1:59 before he came into the pits, realising he'd got enough in the bag and parked the car, so that they don't have to put any more wear on the fresh set of tyres that Joe Bradley was telling us about. So it looks like it's going to be the RHC Jorgensen Strom by Century BMW to top Q3 in the 450 BMW. That's exactly what that car did in Q2 as well. When Brett Strom was driving it, produced a 209.152, but we were 10 seconds quicker than that this time around. Ben Goethe also setting a really good time, and during the session quickest through sector 1, but he couldn't then repeat that in sectors 2 and 3 to skip ahead of the Dutchman, who looks like he will finish as the quickest time. But the young German in second in car 408 for the Rofco with Dragon Racing Mercedes. Third fastest James Kell in the 438 numbered BMW of Simpson Motorsport. And in the TCE category, Jasmine Preissig, I don't think was ever topped, in fact, or she set that time mid-session, and nobody else then able to take up the mantle of being fastest. 1-2-1 is the Wolf Power Racing Audi for the Swiss driver. Fellow Swiss tucked in behind on the timing screen. Second place in TCE is Patrick Gruter in car number 227, which is the Porsche 718 Cayman GT of Team Zorg Rennsport. And the entry from 700 miles, the French crew, they have a VW Golf this year, and Georgian Muginot is the driver of that car, Muginot, and he set a time in the mid 2 minute 2:20s. All I've got at the moment is no, that will be a official lap. The problem, of course, for Jeroen Blekemolen is that I've only got his in lap rather than the fastest lap of the session. But the Frenchman did a 2:15.866 to be third quickest in the TCEs. Plenty of cars already piling into pit lane. It might pay dividends, actually, to almost curtail the last bit of the session so that the turnaround is slightly extended to Q4. Otherwise, it's just 5 minutes downtime between this session and the next.
Yeah, 5 minutes downside from when the checkered flag fell, as opposed to when the car came into the pit lane. So definitely you want to be out early in the first of these two sessions and give yourself a bit of time and go out relatively late in the second, which is qualifying session number 4. And just to point out that the RHC BMW was only fastest after three of the four drivers, by a quarter of a second. So for the 408 crew from Rofco with Dragon Racing, that's Benjamin Goethe, Oliver Goethe, Roald Goethe, Jordan Groger and Stuart Hall, all drivers who know this track remarkably well. It's possible they can fight back. Quarter of a second on aggregate, then the Simpson Motorsport BMW in third place overall in the GT4 class, number 438. That's a further second and a bit back, so I would suggest a little too much to claw back across a 4-session aggregate. But quickfire, I like it. It's dark, it's light in the pits, but as soon as they get through turn 1, turn 2, 3, and then pretty much after that it goes into darkness. So for the drivers, on your toes and stay within the white lines.
Hopefully you're following with our coverage here on RS1, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels. Hopefully you're following along with live timing, perhaps on another screen. If you haven't found that yet, you go to livetiming.getraceresults.com/24H series, and that will give you where we are in the standings for TCR and GT4. And the way I had the screen configured a moment or two ago, you can reorder the times according to Q1, Q2, Q3, but more importantly, the average time. And interestingly, the way I'd configured it a moment or two ago, the AC Motorsport Audi was quickest with Miklas Born because that car's only competed in Q3. And actually, 2:10.105, the time it did in Q3, is quicker than the average from the 450 BMW. So just don't make that mistake. Make sure that the times are legitimate, as in they've got 3 individual qualifying times. Otherwise, that won't be a legal time. But it's interesting that somebody in a TCR car or TCE car could be quicker than a GT4 machine purely on a single lap. But that's down to who you're putting into the car and when.
And the fact that in that session they had fresh rubber. So they've been 3 sessions. That means they've had fresh rubbers in session 2 and session 3, but your pro drivers couldn't do session 2. So it could be a case that was the pro drivers for the first time on fresh rubber. And okay, you might say it's only a 15-minute qualifying session, but fresh rubber does make a difference. But let's see how Miklas Born's teammates can shape up. But the Swiss driver, very, very impressive.
No, it was a good one-off time, and I have a feeling Yannick Mettler could do a similar one as well, a low 2:10. But at the moment, in the GT4 category, we have 3 laps for the 450. The 2:09.182 has just been done by Jeroen Blekemolen, and Nathan Freak, his teammate, now takes 050. So to give you far. Now, was it Darren Jorgensen that did the first session? Probably.
I've got
if not Danny van Dongen. But the order was Jorgensen, I believe, then Strom, then Blekemolen, and now Nathan Freak. But before this session properly gets underway, the 15 minutes have started to tick by, but we'll give him a 2.5 minutes or so to do an outlap. In that meantime, we can go to Joe Bradley for more news.
Yeah, let's have a chat with Rob Huff, who's just brought the Audi in, the RS3 Audi. Rob, The 117 car had a bit of bad luck in the second segment of the early qualifying. So this has put a completely different perspective on this qualifying process for you guys. What's it all about now for you?
Yeah, very much. I mean, now we've got to take the average of the 3 drivers because obviously the second driver didn't do a lap time. And effectively we slot in below everyone else who's done 4 qualifying sessions. But ultimately, with where we're going to start anyway on the grid, it doesn't make really much difference in the 24-hour being, I think there's 5 cars in the class. So it doesn't make a huge difference, but, hugely well done to the team to get the car sorted. We had a brake disc explode, and it made quite a mess. So the guys did a hell of a job to get the car out. We missed the first 20 minutes of the night practice, but managed to get out for the qualifying, and that's what counts. So,
knowing you as everyone does, Rob, though, you would have liked to have been on pole. However, is it something now that you've now begun to focus on the race and how you set up and what you're going to get from the tyres during the race?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, there's no points for qualifying, there's no prizes for qualifying. It's obviously nice to be on pole. We were last year, and it was great, but ultimately it made no difference in the race for us. So, we've been working on the Audi quite a lot. It's really difficult to get a balance of the car setup-wise between the 4 drivers. Obviously, I'm the pro in the car, the other 3 are amateurs, and it's much more for me to set the car up for them, to make the car easier for them, which makes the car a bit harder for me to drive, but obviously I can deal with it a bit better. And being only a quarter of the equation, it's better to be quicker with 3/4 of the equation. So I'm happy with the lap we did. I mean, we're quite a way off what we did last year. I think we did a 9.0 last year. But ultimately the track's a bit slower, conditions are harder, and we've had very little time in the car this year. So it's been about getting those guys as much time in the car, because ultimately in the race they're going to play a major factor in it. And we want to be there at the end.
Rob, I want to ask you, I mean, you've just been telling me you're now a resident here in Dubai. You've been here 5 years. As an event, what does the city of Dubai make of the 24 hours of Dubai? I mean, I've been told we've sold 25,000 tickets. I mean, that's getting a British touring car crowd levels, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. That's the most amount of tickets that ever have been sold for the weekend. It's a huge event. Obviously, the last few years with COVID and stuff, it didn't happen, and it takes a while to get people back into it. But there's huge communities around here, golf clubs and so on, with huge expat communities, and of course they're all coming here for the weekend, which is great. I mean, they've done a great job with the advertising on radios, television, all the rest of it. So there's no doubt. The more every year the event gets bigger and bigger, and attracts more people. But it's great to be here. It's nice to be effectively home event. And not too far to go to bed.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Antonio. Pleasure. Best of luck at the race, mate.
That's always an advantage. He might even get to his own bed Saturday night into Sunday, although a lot of drivers, even if they are local, prefer to stay based at the track just in case something happens during one of the stints they're not supposed to be involved with and they get a late call to have to take over. That's the nature of a 24-hour race, I suppose. You do get a bit of shut-eye, 2, 3, 4 hours, but always have to be on high alert just in case you have to be called on at the last minute. So we are now working our way through qualifying 4, and 5 minutes of that have already elapsed. Some good times coming through from Nathan Freak to 11.272. That is the fastest of the session so far, although look at Yannick Mettler doing a 2:10.437. And now Oliver Goethe in the 408 Mercedes of Rofco with Dragon Racing, 2:10.314. Does that take the car to the top on the averages, therefore?
Yes, it does, Johnny.
Yeah.
But at the moment, the average is they're up by 0.1 and a bit, about 1.13 of a second now. The 408 Dragon Speed car to the top. Sorry, Dragon Racing, not Dragon Speed. Elton Julian not involved on this occasion. But I'm just picking out, you mentioned in that first session about how quickly that 188 went from the TC E-Class, that's the AC Motorsport Audi. We mentioned Miklas Born, now it's in the hands of Yannick Mettler, but it shows how incredibly close they are to the GT4s. You wouldn't always think so. They're doing the same job in a different way with different machinery, but Oliver Goethe, well, the 2 racing Goethe sons are very impressive, and it's about having a well-balanced lineup, and right across the board you can certainly feel the 408 crew, lots of local experience. Rofco with Dragon Racing here in Dubai and making it pay, but good to see the young guns, the young Goethers really showing their mettle.
But that is a significant move for the 408 car. At the end of qualifying 1, it was 438 that led the way. We then went into Q2, and that, I believe, put the 450 BMW fastest on combined times. It stayed like that when Jeroen Bleekemolen took over, but now, having not topped the times on the previous 3 averages, as things stand, Oliver Goethe, the 18-year-old and second son of Roald Goethe, is doing enough to be ahead. Although, having said that, Nathan Freak now offers a response. He's just done a 2:10.462, and that's not quicker than Oliver Goethe, but it is enough to take the 450 car back to the top on the averages, and by only, well, that's less than a 1/10 of a second now when we're weaving 4 different qualifying sessions in and dividing by 4. How close do you want it?
Such a shame that we heard from Rob Huff, whose maths is absolutely tip-top. Whatever they can do in the 188 car from the TCR class, they won't have set a time across all 4 sessions, but they just are lapping as fast as those two. 2 minutes 10.4 from Yannick Mettler, so that 188 Audi absolutely on the money. But alas, having missed one of those earlier qualifying sessions, they won't be at the top of the chart. They will only be fighting for best of the rest. But good pace, good to see the 2 classes, Johnny, GT4 and TCE, so super close.
This is unbelievable. Average times 2:10.544, plays a 2:10.575 on 4 lap averages. We're talking about a 300th of a second gap. And Cameron McLeod's really not very far away either, just 0.4 of a second back in the number 438 BMW of Simpson Motorsport.
You can almost hear the clatter of slide rules. That's showing my age, but I mean, it's bobbing one way, bobbing the other, and we are dealing in 1/10 of a second, making differences. It's actually a very good maths lesson for all involved.
It's also great driver selection from each of the 3 individual teams. They're not connected in any way, despite the fact that RHC, Jorgensen Strom and Simpson Motorsport have similar cars here, although one is an F82, one is a G82, I notice, of the M4 GT4s. But Nathan Freak leaning on really not very much at all to stay ahead of Ollie Goethe, who is due across the line in the next 30 seconds. We've still got 6 minutes to go for this to play out. And at the moment, Goethe's got enough speed to leapfrog again Nathan Freak.
Except Nathan Freak has just popped up in front at 2:10 flat. That puts the 450 to the top of the chart. So it chops, it changes, does the same. And as you said, just under 6 minutes remaining. It's 450 from 408 from 438. So GT4 cars topping the session.
Wait for Goethe though, because he's been absolute best through sector 1 and 2, about to cross the line now. Can he do a clean sweep of purple sectors? He absolutely can. It's a 2:09.506, and on the average times that will take him above Nathan Freak again. So we have once more the 408 car sitting in provisional pole, the Rofco with Dragon Racing Mercedes.
Yeah, but what's the gap, Johnny? It's 0.03 of a second. When I said maths, you've got to do micro maths.
Well, we have had 0.03 of a second before, but just the other way, favouring Nathan Freak. This time it's Oliver Goethe who's fastest, 2:10.411, and Freak's combined time 2:10.441. So a 411 plays a 441, and then it is a 2:10.747 for Cam McLeod, the Australian in the 438 BMW of Simpson Motorsport, the English squad. And that was McLeod's best time of the session so far. So we are seeing improvement up and down the order, particularly in the GT4 category. TCE, it's Kalle Bergman, the Swede in car number 121, that is now fastest for Wolf Power Racing. The Audi RS3 that was earlier driven by Jasmin Preissig, and now that Wolf Power car holding on to its provisional pole position courtesy of Bergman.
But it's by 2 seconds, Johnny. You have to feel at this stage, with 4 minutes remaining, that one is sorted. You need a rocket to overtake that pace across the board. So 1-2-1, just to let you know what it is. It's one of the Wolf Power Racing Audis. Kalle Bergman driving it now. Took over from Jasmin Preissig, and earlier Ivers Valars and Andreas Hoffer drove that car. So they're well placed for the race. Of course, all these cars will be starting at the tail end of this grid behind the GT3 runners, but battles within battles. But Oliver Goethe takes the prize so far. 2 minutes 9.5 seconds, best lap of this session.
And remember, despite the name of the category for the GT4 cars, it's simply named as GT on our screen. GT4 are going to be part of the TCE race and therefore eligible for that TCE trophy. And there's an individual TCE podium compared to the GT podium that will also take place on Sunday afternoon. Therefore, 6 camels required rather than the 3 that we used to have for the lone podium.
I've got a question, a query. I've looked at the graphic on the screen and it's saying 4:08 at the top from 4:50. Yes, we know 4:38. Cameron McLeod going really well in that with 3 minutes remaining. Their car has disappeared from the graphic. I hope nothing untoward. I've seen no messages, but they should be 3rd in this session, 3rd overall on average across the 4 sessions. But at the moment, their graphic isn't coming up. So just something maybe Joe might know the answers to. But Joe, sorry, I didn't mean to throw you a curveball, but if you know anything, squeak up.
Well, the other thing interesting for me is that on that scoring tower that you talk about, there is no 3rd place at all. It just goes 1, 2, 4, 5. So
yes, okay.
I think it's just gone missing somewhere. Someone's not quite unlocked the drop-down menu to access 3rd place car. But let's assume 438 is there. However, there is drama now for the 199 of David Lau, driver from Hong Kong, because that 5th place TCR car has found the wall. That's quite difficult to do around the Dubai Autodrome in places, and I'm just trying to work out exactly where that car has come to a halt. The tracker may provide an answer, show all the numbers. We're going to go red flag with 2 minutes to go. 2 minutes and 10 seconds remaining on the clock. That is less than a lap time, or pretty much on a lap time, but an out lap will take you a lot longer than 2:10, and that might mean that the session is called at that point. So here's where we stand, and an incredibly tight fight at the top of the order, but Oliver Goethe in the 408 Rofco with Dragon Racing Mercedes may well have done enough, because by 300ths of a second, on the averages, remember, he is quicker than the currently Nathan Freak-driven RHC Jorgensen Strom by Century BMW. Nathan just about to cross the line. In fact, he's not bothered to cross the line. He's instead gone into the pits by advice to his team, and the session will not be resumed. So we have that as confirmation that the 408 Rofco with Dragon Racing Mercedes AMG GT4, despite not topping on the averages Q1, Q2 or Q3, when you add Q4 into it and the Oliver Goethe time, which was a 209.5, half a second quicker than Nathan Freak, that for me is what's done the damage, because the car, the 408, was slower than a couple in Q1. It was there or thereabouts in Q2 with a low 209. 209.4 was about 3 seconds slower than the 450 BMW in Q3, but it's half a second that Oliver Goethe has found on the rest of the field, which has leapfrogged it right to the front. Yes, you could argue how much does qualifying actually matter for a 24-hour race, but that was thrilling for me, particularly based on the fact that we started qualifying at about 1:45 this afternoon, and by now approaching 8 o'clock in the evening, finally we know who's going to be on pole, and it is by 300ths of a second.
I mean, that's the thing, Johnny. It was chopping and changing. It was absolutely keeping the drivers on their toes, us on our toes in the commentary box, and then to be with such tiny microscopic increments. But I think all of those drivers at the front end in the GT4 cars had pretty much done what they needed to do, and I think we're already coming in. I think their tyres were starting to go away, that very, very sweet spot a little bit. But 408, silver with blue marks up its flanks, that comes to a standstill, and Oliver Goethe's done a very, very good job indeed. Super tight, and hats off to Nathan Freak, who did everything he could. But Dragon Racing is the team to go to, and we've already got that because we've got Joe Bradley covering it. Joe.
Yeah, Oliver just being greeted by his team, and also his driver coach, Stewie Hall, who's down to drive the car. Outstanding lap from one of your proteges. Another of your proteges, Ben Goethe here. But you guys must be very proud of Oliver, because that was an outstanding lap time, Stu.
He did an outstanding job. You know, everyone's done an outstanding job today, team drivers. You know, it's special to drive with both the boys, Roald and Geordie. You know, it really is a family effort. Long way to go, but you know, you can only do as well as you can do on the day. So we've had a good day, but it doesn't really count after 3:01 tomorrow afternoon, does it?
It kind of doesn't. It matters a lot right now, Stu. Ben, you must live in a very competitive household. What's a game of Monopoly like in your house?
Yeah, no, it is always competitive. And I think I won this one by 1/10, so I'm happy with that one.
So your time was quicker than Oliver's?
Is that right? Sorry?
Was your time quicker than Oliver's?
Yes, it was.
All right, tell the world.
It was
By
quicker.
3
I was
tenths.
quicker than my brother, so yes.
Let's get your brother in. Can we get Oliver over here? Because this is I love this competitive rivalry.
But maybe their coach was quicker than the two of them.
Is that true, Stu?
Look at the sheets.
Right, because that's a good one. Oliver, come in here, mate. Can I firstly shake your hand? Fantastic lap time. This fella here reckons he was quicker, and this old boy here reckons he was quicker still. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, he did do the quickest lap, to be fair.
To be fair, it was daylight though, and the track was probably stickier, wasn't it?
I don't know, but we all did a good job, I think. It's the average. that
Joe,
counts.
he has said he's very proud of you both.
Yeah, I'm proud of them too.
He hasn't mentioned anything about his teammate Jordan Groger though. Jordan, these youngsters have done a cracking job and put your car on the TCE pole. You must be very pleased for everyone in the team.
No, of course. It's like one big, great family. It's great to race with the boys, with Stu, with Rolt. It's just a fun, competitive, fast out team. And just Stu and I had a little bet with the boys that if they couldn't keep up with us, they're going to have to shave their head. So, ask Benji about his haircut on Sunday.
We're going to find out. So, Benji, have you got a book for Sunday?
I never agreed to this bet, so I never agreed to.
You're live on television, I'm afraid. It's been said.
I have eyewitnesses who say I've never agreed to this bet, so.
Well, grow back. Just get the speed on. That's all you got to do. Just put your foot in.
I'll try. I mean, he's only saying it because he has no hair already, so he can't be on it a bit.
Valid point. I'll leave it here, guys. This is going to go on for all weekend, really.
Yeah, I spot a lingering theme somehow, and it may not go particularly Ben Goether's way, but it did go his way earlier on because, as he mentioned, he was, I reckon, half a tenth faster than brother Oliver Goethe. A 4.56 played a 5.06, but those are the margins that brothers will kick about with and to make sure that the bragging rights are fully rammed home. But there's a little bet underlying all of that, which involves shaved heads. Then Jordan Groger possibly has the advantage because he hasn't got a lot of work to do.
In all fairness, it's a smaller task for Jordan, but you know what? I think he'd take it in good stead and do what he needs to do. But it's good to see that Benjamin Goethe is keen to keep his top on, but very, very close indeed. No wonder
Johnny,
they took
can
pole
I just
position,
put in
but
on you guys?
Point out it was very, very close indeed. And I'm sure Joe Bradley is probably going to be shaving his head as well. Or did I mishear that? Joe?
Well, I would be okay with shaving my head if I was only half a tenth from Stewie Hall. But isn't it great, that inter-team rivalry? And when you think about it, we are old enough to remember when those two boys were running around in the back of the paddock and were unable to drive cars or carts. They were so young. But what a great atmosphere it is in that team. And isn't it just wonderful, the inter-team rivalry going on? The moment I started talking to Ben, he was quick to tell me, but I was quicker. And then the old boy, Stewie Hall, butts in and says, well, actually, I was quicker than them both. And it's like, you've got to be careful, going quicker than your employer, I should say.
True.
I've been run over down here, boys. It's great.
Oh, careful where you stand, Joe. Come on.
As
How much experience have you had in pit lanes?
Not
for
a
goodness
lot.
sake. Always
Quite
look
a bit.
behind you. Not a lot. To give Stewie Hall his every credit, I mean, he was down in the 0.1s, whereas Ben did a 0.456 and Ollie did a 5.5. So it was half a tenth between the two brothers, but Stewie was about 3 or 4 tenths quicker than the two of them. So you can forgive him for wanting to point that out, set the record straight. He ain't not lost anything in his slightly older age, Stuart Hall.
No, indeed, but you know what? All the drivers in the TCE class and the GT4 class have a bit of advantage when it comes to qualifying. There are only 10 cars out on the track. There should be 40, possibly 42, but I think 40 cars, 4 times as many, coming out for this qualifying session 3, and hopefully the same number for qualifying number 4. Just to reiterate, 15 minutes of qualifying, 1 set of tyres, no refueling. You've got to make your space on the track, harder for the GT3 runners, as I've just mentioned, and you're going to set a time that's added to the 2 qualifying times from daylight from each of these night sessions. Then we'll look at the averages, and if it's as good and as tight as it was in GT4, we are going to be dealing not in tenths of seconds, but fractions of tenths of seconds. Who's going to come out on top? Well, we'll find out fairly soon indeed. We get the first pointer, Johnny, in about 14 minutes' time when this session, Q3, comes to an end.
But this is where we stand so far, with the 911 car quickest on a 2-lap average. That's thanks to Alex Malikin's time in the 911 Porsche from Herbert, doing a 2 minutes 0.610.
I know why you said Herbert, because it's pure racing.
I beg your
It's
pardon.
always 911. I've fallen over many times to write in my notes. I went Herbert Motorsport, cross that out. Pure racing.
I didn't check that, and
No,
I should have done. I just saw 911 because they always tend to run with that number. Apologies. So pure racing, fastest. They also have in their ranks Sven Müller, Joel Sturm, and Harry King, no less. Do we know who did the Q2 time?
Harry King.
So that was a 2 minutes .154. So you've got Malikin and King, who've already been applied in the sense of that car. King will have been on the used tyres. This is Q3, so brand new set of tyres, and you are able to use a Pro should you wish. So it would make sense to put Sven Müller out there.
It certainly would. Joel Stern's been getting faster over the last couple of years, but you have to put the clever money on Sven Müller. Been there, seen it, done it. And again, 15 minutes, 40 cars around the track. Yeah, that's going to be a busy old place to be, and I can see a couple of cars getting very close to each other, which won't help either of them. Car number 32 pressing on. Bright orange, not so bright under cover of darkness, and that's Team GP Elite, the Dutch team. And just waiting to see who's going to be powering around the circuit in that. Easier to trip up than get it right. Lucas Groeneveld is the driver at the wheel of that one at the moment. They're 12th on aggregate, but it's 991 still at the top of the charts. But it's once these first flying laps in this qualifying session are registered on this very busy track that we see the lie of the land. And should have the fastest times of all 4 sessions, because track conditions are very, very good now. It's the first time one of the top-ranked drivers in any of these crews will have a fresh set of rubber.
Well, we got close to breaking the 2 minute buffer in Q1. As I say, 2 minutes .6 was the quickest time. There were 2 cars sub 2 minutes in Q2, and they were the number one Phoenix Racing Audi, where Pierre Caffer did the time, again on used tyres, but he still managed a 1:59.654, and there was a 1:59.999. So by 1,000th of a second, they managed to get underneath the 2 minute marker. That was the 99 Tresor Attempto Racing Audi R8. Again, Attempto Racing having to remember that they reverted to, or changed to Audis a couple of years ago from their more traditional Porsches, a decade or so prior to this. So it was 1:99 and 21, your top 3 in Q2, but when you turn them all into averages, as I say, the 911 pure racing car is the one to beat.
If you're looking at the live timing, the order's going to really jumble. The first 6-8 cars have set the flying lap, and the fastest of those so far is the orange car the TV director picked out, the Team GP Elite Porsche. Lucas Groeneveld, 2 minutes .7 seconds. And let's see as some of the quick names further down the order get to complete their lap. We've got the likes of Sean Gallale, people who compete at the top level of motor racing. Nico Menzel, look for good stuff from him. Lucas Stoltz, 777. That could be one that moves up the charts. But at the moment, it's 32, Team GP Elite at the top of this table. Under 10 minutes to go. The first 5 minutes went past in a flash of headlights, and certainly a lot of cars getting very, very close to their rivals. Of course, it's not just the GT3 class. We've got the Porsche Cup class as well. Let's see where they stack up in the order.
No sign yet of the 911 car in this session, nor indeed the 21, which have been both very strong in the opening 2 sessions. We're still waiting for the Haas RT Audi R8 LMS, which is car 21. Last time out, that was driven by one of the 5 drivers of this quintet that I'll give you: Maxime Soulet, Mathieu Detry, Olivier Berthels, Benjamin Matsatis and Fred Verviche are the 5 drivers in the 21 car. Neither session has been topped by car 21, but average times look very impressive. 2:01.2 in Q1, put that car 6th, and then it was as high up as 3rd with a 2 minutes .109 in Q2. But have we got? Yeah, the 911 has now joined the session, and it has got Sven Muller in it on brand new tyres.
Yeah, and I think you ought to know, I just picked out a handful of names and said look for Lucas Stoltz, and he just put the 777 to the top of the charts.
There you
That's
go.
the Almanar by Racing by HRT Mercedes, shared with Axel Jeffries, such success here, Martin Conrad, the Austrian, who's the AM in that team, and Fabian Schiller. But Lucas Stoltz, you can rely on him. You can rely on him in a Mercedes, and he's top of the chart.
And top in the session so far, actually no, Jules Gounon is now quickest with a 1:58.517. Remember, he went quickest in free practice earlier. And also right up there is Ross Gunn in the heart of racing by SPS Mercedes AMG. So it is 3 Mercs topping this session individually. But on the averages, Lucas Stoltz doing enough with a 1:58.684. He's not fastest in this particular session, but he is, when you add in the 2 other times done by his teammates, doing enough to stay above, keeping his head above water from the number 4 car. So it's the 777 Mercedes on the average, fastest, from the number 4 Mercedes AMG second, and the Audi of Tresor Attempto Racing third quickest. That car currently being driven by Alex Arkin-Acker. 7.5 minutes to go. We've had half of qualifying 3 for all of the GT cars. So that's not only GT3s, 17 of them currently circulating, but we also should have 18 992s, 992 Porsches, plus a couple of GTX machines as well. And Leo Pichler is currently out in the 714 GTX car. That's the KTM Crossbow of Austria for Razun Moore than Racing.
Okay, and the car that's top in the 992 Cup class is car number 955, which is entered by Willie Motorsport by Ebby Motors. And, absolutely flying in the hands of Sergio Nicolai. This is the car that only has 3 drivers, so one of them will end up doing 2 of these sessions, presumably the driver who's going to do session number 4. But right now, 6.5 minutes remain, and they are top of the Porsche Cup class, but by much, well, by 0.3 of a second. That's actually very tidy indeed, but we've got to see what their 4th driver can do. But up front, with a 1:58.335, fastest lap of all qualifying so far, Lucas Stoltz stretches the advantage to, well, not really a whole lot, 0.15 of a second. But again, it's 2 cars entered by HRT, one by Almanar Racing by HRT, the other number 4 using that same technology advice, Abu Dhabi Racing by HRT. So 2 Mercedes at the top of the table. Then Tresor by Racing by Attempto in the mix as well. That's car number 99. And that, of course, is the Audi, as Johnny just mentioned.
So at this stage, the top 2 in the GT3 category, easy to follow because they're the same in this session in isolation as they are on the average. Lucas Stoltz quickest in Q3, 1:58.335, but that 777 car also has the best average time for 3 drivers. Second fastest in this session, Jules Gounon. He's done a 1:58.517 in the number 4 Mercedes for Abu Dhabi Racing by HRT. The sister car to the provisional pole sitter, and that car's also second fastest on the averages too. The only difference we then have from session in isolation to average is in 3rd place, because Ross Gunn is not actually 3rd when you total all the times together. He's quite a bit further down the order actually in car number 27. So where is 27 on the average? It's 9th, in fact. That is the heart of rating by SPS Mercedes AMG. So Ross Gunn doing his level best to really lever that car further up the order than where it was at the end of Q2. Lucas Stoltz is in the pits, and I don't think there's enough time left on the clock necessarily to do any more time. I mean, he doesn't necessarily need to. He might feel that on a brand new set of tyres, that 1:58.335 is not going to be bettered.
No, and you know what, Johnny, a driver of his calibre, his experience, particularly in Mercedes AMGs, he probably understands exactly where the drop-off point comes. Not worth his consideration of doing a further flying lap. There might have been a gaggle of cars up ahead, which you'd have to negotiate. But again, when you look up and down the time charts, you find some great performances way down the order, down in about 15th position. Number 19, that's the MP Motorsport Mercedes, and Daniel de Jong has got below 2 minutes, yet the car is down there. But again, that emphasises it's an average we're looking at, and the positions are based on the average of those first 3 sessions so far. So his heroics would have improved its position, but again, unluckily for him, his first 2 teammates have not done as good a job as he has done. But all you can do is what you can do, and certainly Daniel de Jong, young Dutch racer, going very well indeed.
Sven Muller now up to 3rd position on the average time, so bringing the pure racing Porsche 911 up, and that is because Sven is currently 5th fastest in Q3. So his time, a 1:59.592, is slower than Alex Arkin-Acker, Ross Gunn, Jules Gounon and Lucas Stoltz. But Sven Muller will be happy, I'm sure, so far with his work to bring the 911 car up to 3rd on the average readings. Alex Arkin-Acker in the 99 Trésor Attempter Racing Audi is 4th fastest, then behind Sven's Pure Racing Porsche, and 5th quickest now for Jens Klingman in the Team WRT BMW for the Belgian squad, car 7, 5th fastest when you total all 3 sessions together.
Right, for a lot of us it's the first race of 2023, and it's important to keep saying TWRT BMW. It's so easy to say Audi after, 10 years they had racing with them. It might have even been 11, but going very well indeed. Got a change at the top in the Porsche Cup class. Car number 909, top of the table now. Rick Broikers had a couple of quiet years, but sharing with Father Ivo and brother Luke and Fabian Dance, the Red Camel Jordan's NL Porsche. Well, it would be a Porsche, because it's a Porsche Cup, up to 20th overall. And, the fastest driver so far by a margin. Lucas Stoltz, the fastest pit reporter, Joe Bradley. Joe.
Yeah, Lucas just brought the 777 numbered Mercedes in. Look, you guys must be happy with that, fastest in that session.
Yeah, so far, yes. I think Jules is still pushing, so I'm gonna hope I keep the P1. But yeah, car's great. Team did a great job. Yeah, really happy. It's a bit strange to do a qualifying in the night, to go out and really push, but yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Does that make a massive difference? I mean, we talk about night driving, we talk about qualifying in the night, as you've said. Just how different is it? Give us an idea.
Yeah, for sure, because in the qualifying you look very tense, and I mean in the race you have like some time to get used to everything, but here you have to like straight push on the hot tire. But yeah, a lot of fun, and yeah, really happy.
Here on the pit straight, there's plenty of floodlighting, so it's quite light. But out on the circuit, is it very dark?
Yeah, it's the different because it's really light here, and there are some really dark corners, so your eyes have adapted really quickly, and this makes it a challenge. But yeah, as I said, it's also a lot of fun.
Who's in the car next, Luca?
It's Fabian Schiller, and then we hope we keep the P1.
Well, there's every chance with Fabian at the wheel. Well done, Luca. That's your job over. What a situation to be in. Who's in next? Fabian Schiller. All right, that's optimised.
Well, Lucas Stoltz was a champion, a couple of championships last year, also a win at the Bathurst 12 Hours as well with Sun Energy One Racing in the Pro-Am division, the 27-year-old German. Surprisingly, again, to me, that he's gold rather than platinum, but I think I'm looking at the latest FIA
He must be a
categories.
whisker under a platinum, because those wins have been coming. The last 5 or 6 years have been super, super strong for Luca, and it's not just in his own right. He supports a lot of other drivers when it gets into a Pro-Am category, and certainly absolute dynamite. But the fastest lap from Jules Gounon was just a 1/10 of a second down. The difference between the 777 car, the Mercedes at the top of the charts for Al Manar Racing by HRT, and the Abu Dhabi Racing by HRT Mercedes, is 0.14 of a second. So can it be clawed back? But you mentioned, or Joe mentioned, Fabian Schiller will be the 4th driver into the 777, and in the number 4 sister car, if you like, we've had Khaled Al-Kubaisi. I'm trying to work out who is next. We'll work that one out, but it's very, very tight. But don't forget, these are the drivers who've been asked to take the very sweet spot out, or grab the most out of these tyres. Pro drivers on fresh rubber, and certainly it's been a masterclass from Lucas Stoltz.
Talking about the quickest time in the 992 category, you're quite right in pointing out that it's the 909 Red Camel Jordans.NL Porsche, being driven right now by Rick Broikers. But had the 908 car done Q1, then that would have been right up there with a fighting chance. Sadly, the car that I'm talking about wasn't able to take part in qualifying one. I'm sure that was detailed at the time, but the Seb Lajoux Racing by Duvo Racing Porsche that has had Mathis Jobert at the wheel, very impressive times of a 205.187 in Q2 and a 202.0 that will put it ahead of the 909, but that is not a legal average because of the missing qualifying 1 effort. So 1:59.941 is the time to beat right now. Lucas Stoltz did the time. Jules Gounon pushed hard, Joe, but hasn't managed to go faster than Lucas Stoltz.
Not quite. Just wanted to tell you, it looked like Sebastian Baudou's got into the car. That's a French driver, so I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Bond, maybe. I was hoping to get a word with Khaled Al-Khabaisi, who, of course, is he's kind of on home territory, isn't he? He's been a part of this race for many, many years, and he has already been out in the car earlier. We'll let Jules just taking his helmet off and in conversation with Hubert Haupt at the moment, so we'll leave them to that, and I'll give you a shout if I get anybody else to talk to down here, guys.
So Sebastian Beau, perhaps, drop the D, being French, the man from Annecy, 22 years old, was a champion in the Ligier European Series 3 years ago, we can now say, now that we're into 2023, so relatively new to the Dubai 24 hours. I'm sure this will be a debut for the Frenchman, but he's been given the responsibility to complete the qualifying in that particular car, the Khaled Al-Khabaisi car, but it is the treble 7, the one to beat in GT3 as things stand. The 909 Porsche 992 car of Red Camel Jordans.nl tops its category. That's effectively a 992 Pro entry. 992 AM sees the 979 car quickest, which is the Speed Lover offering. Once again, a 992 Gen Porsche GT3 Cup car, and Stephen Pallet was last in that. GTX 714 fastest on the averages, the car from Razzoon More Than Racing, which is their KTM Crossbow GTX, with Leo Pichler last to qualify, but it'll be switch around again, and a brand new driver to qualifying, well, for all cars bar one, which is the 955 Sergei Nicolai, Fabrizio Broggi, etc. car. They only have 3 drivers, the Romanian and Italian combination of nationalities for the 955. It's been a long-standing relationship with Vili Motors by Ebby Motors, and Ebby Motors is the Italian element of the otherwise Romanian crew. And I'm not sure whether we've caught up with Fabrizio Broggi during our coverage so far, but always need to do that at some point because he is very high value. Typical Italian sense of humour. Dubai Autodrome looking spectacular this Friday evening, with the hotel illuminated in the background with the horizontal strip lighting, LED lighting, which changes colour through the course of the evening. No fireworks tonight, but we will be having the typical and traditional 8 o'clock fireworks when the race is underway come Saturday night.
One qualifying session remains. One each of the categories. They get 4 runs across 4 sessions, 2 in daylight, 2 in nightfall. I must say the track looks at its very best in the dark. I must say, looks absolutely brilliant. But 40 cars, double checking, I think went out in that last session. It's very, very busy for the first of the sessions for the TCE and the GT4s. A bit more space to play with. I'm sure a number of drivers tripped themselves up over their 15-minute stint, but it's very, very close at the top, Johnny, as we look ahead. Treble 7 Mercedes ahead of the number 4 Mercedes. The difference between them, let's do the maths on that. It's 0.14 of a second, and then you're dealing in even less than that, 0.12 of a second back to third place, which is the 911. Number 911, which is in there challenging Pure Racing Porsche. Harry King, Alexander Malakin have had a go, so Sven Muller. Now will be the turn of Joel Sturm to see if he can upset the apple cart at the top. Very, very tight indeed. The session underway. Qualifying 4 is beginning. Just waiting for the graphic to change on the screen, but we don't hang around here at the Dubai Autodrome.
Another little thing for Joe to follow up, if at all possible. Might not be able to do it in the next 15 minutes, but it's a story to follow. What's gone on with the number 21 GT3 car, because the Haas RT Audi did not feature in qualifying 3 at all and had been well up there. Did a 2:01.2 in Q1, a 2 minutes 0.1 in Q2, but that 0 effectively in Q3 means it can be whipped out of the top 10 straight away. Clearly, there's been a drama for car number 21. Joe.
Johnny, the 909 Porsche of Red Camels Jordans is the fastest 992 car out there, fastest in class that is. And Rick Breukers here. Rick, you're happy with that? You're just telling me you've done very little testing, so to be able to produce a drive like that, you're very pleased.
Yeah, it was quite a challenge, but I mean, I'm quite happy that we still got the pace. I think everyone has probably not as much testing as they wanted, so yeah, we are very happy.
We spoke earlier in the week about the track being very, very green, more green than we expected. Is that completely changed now? We've had I think 3 days of rubber down.
I don't know. I didn't drive 3 days ago.
Oh, right, okay.
So
right.
yeah, no idea.
Right. I believe that your part in the team has expanded to being quite like a team principal, an operations manager. You're now looking after a lot of the responsibilities of bringing the team together and getting them here. Is that correct?
That's correct. Maybe not everyone wants me to interfere with all the things which are going on in the team, but yeah, I like to be involved. I like to do the strategy, see how the pit stops are going, and to motivate the team to do the best job. So maybe it's true, but not intentional.
I see. I was going to ask, does that interfere with your focus as a driver? I mean, you know, Daytona winner, Sebring winner in GTD, you've won this race before. As a pro driver, does that sort of get in the way of being a driver at all?
Maybe not really in the way, but I'm less motivated on being fast on track. I'm more motivated on having a good team and having a good time with everyone. So I'm maybe not as competitive as I used to be. I mean, I'm still probably the same speed on track, but I don't care as much for the driving as I used to do, to be honest. So I like being more involved in the team stuff.
So the challenge is getting the team onto the podium now, not just Rick Breukers onto that podium.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so far so good, Rick. It's Dad's at the wheel now, isn't he, Ivo?
Yeah, he is. Let's hope we can do a good job and we can keep the pole position. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Thanks, Rick.
Rick Breukers here on RS1, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels, chatting to Joe Bradley. You can get in touch at RSL_studio on the socials, namely Twitter, and I'm sure there's a hashtag that is being used by many of you as well. Hashtag 24H series will probably do it, and we'll dig those out, give you a mention wherever you are around the world. It's coming up for 4:30 in the UK, 5:30 Central European time, but I'm sure many of you are up at ridiculous times of the day or night in far further flung places than that. We'd love to hear where you are and what you're disrupting, maybe a day of work that has just been completed, probably not working tomorrow being a Saturday, although some may be. Perhaps you're in the office right now having a sneaky listen and kicking off your motorsports season with us, as so many have done through the years. Already 4 minutes on the clock for this final qualifying session of the day. It has been about a 6 or 7 hour effort this to get qualifying completed, and well, the TCE qualifying was so tight, just 0.03 of a second separating 4 different qualifying times. And the early quick times are starting to pour in now, Bruce Jones.
Yeah, and if you're contacting us, RSL_studio, just let us know what you think of this 4-session qualifying format. I think it's rather fine, but the hard thing is to keep your eyes on the right screen at the right time, because the times keep on changing. But what we need to see in this session, if anyone can get under 2 minutes flat in a GT3 car, they're doing well, because none of the drivers in this session are out on fresh rubber. That was in the previous session. Who's fastest so far? By some margin, Chris de Jong's car number 1, the Phoenix Racing Audi. I spotted some quick sector times. He's sharing with Michael Doppelmayr, Elia Earhart, and P. Kaffer. Well, he doesn't need new tyres. He's good enough on anything, but that moves them up to 3rd overall. Now we've had the first dozen cars setting a flying lap in this qualifying 4, so we're starting to see where their likely end time is going to be, their aggregate across the 4 sessions. For now, it's car 32 leading the way, the Team GP Elite Porsche. The driver at the wheel of that is Thierry Vermeulen.
So yes, an unlikely provisional pole sitter, some may well say. Great to see the Pro-Am and the Am cars all represented in the average top 5, although as Fabian Schiller crosses the line, that all of a sudden jumps the 777 car to the top. The Almanar Racing by HRT Mercedes that has topped average times after Q2, Q3, and perhaps now at the end of Q4 as well, although we've still got the best part of 10 minutes of this still to elapse. Treble 7, Al Manar Racing fastest on the averages. From Sebastian Bowe, the driver that Joe Bradley was talking about, he taking over the Abu Dhabi Racing by HRT car, but Pure Racing now split those two HRT run cars because Joel Sturm goes through. Joel Sturm in the 911 Pure Racing car, not Herbert, as I was incorrectly identifying.
We'd have all fallen in that one, Johnny. Car number 10, look out for that, because a young racer up from New Zealand, name seems familiar, Earl Bamber, moves it up to third place overall, bringing the world champion. So he's showing that Trenton Racing, Grove Racing, BMW, Porsche with Anton de Pasquale, Brenton Grove and Stephen Grove, and they're going to be racing again very soon indeed down in Bathurst, but Earl doing the sort of job you expect. 2 minutes flat for him, but the best lap of the session, 1 minute 59.8. Fabian Schiller showing that treble 7. Mercedes is absolutely on the top run at the moment.
And amazingly for Earl Bamber, this is a Dubai 24-hour debut, is it not? I'm
So
pretty
I'm
sure
told.
I read that on the 24H Series Twitter feed. I'm sure he's run cars here before, EBM crew.
Yeah, but sometimes it's his brother who's running them here. But, you know, as someone who's been based in Southeast Asia for a long time. Right, Joe, down in the pit lane.
Yeah, you asked about the 21. That's the Haas Audi. It's bad news. I've got one of the drivers here, Benjamin Mazatis. I've just spoken to your engineer, Chris, and he tells me the bad news. But tell the world what's going on.
Yeah, unfortunately we had an engine issue during the night practice, and now we are not able to drive night quali, which for sure puts us in a tough spot for tomorrow, because we had such a good chance with being P2 overall so far. But I mean, that's life, that's endurance racing, and we will continue. Now the boys will fix it overnight, swap the engine, and then hopefully tomorrow it will work. It's very tough for the whole team, but especially for the boys. I mean, they need to work really hard now tonight and then stay awake tomorrow for another night, working at their maximum. So probably 48 hours, no sleep, but they can do it, we can do it, and we drivers will give everything we have tomorrow to come back stronger and make the impossible still possible and go for the top spot.
I'm sure you guys will, and I'm sure. Is there any idea how long it will take to change the engine? What sort of time do the boys think they're going to be going back to the hotel for a little bit of sleep?
Yeah, at the moment we don't know exactly. I mean, we had figured first of all out the problem together with Audi. They support us very well, so huge thank you also to Audi and the whole team here. And yeah, now we have a new engine, and now already are working on the car, and we really hope as sooner they get it, the more sleep they get, which is quite important. I mean, 1 hour or 2 hours makes big difference for tomorrow as well. So yeah, they will give their best to make it as soon as possible happen. But yeah, just cross the fingers for us, for the whole team, and then we will go tomorrow.
Thanks for letting us know, Benjamin. And that is all of your bad luck gone now. It's going to go well tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. Thank you.
Describe it.
Yes, it's always important to know where the commentary box is. Some circuits are on the inside looking out, and Dubai you're on the outside looking in. You can see the final sweep of corners up over the crest at turn 15, down into 16. Then you lose them before they get to the end of the start-finish straight, because the track drops away. There's much more gradient than you realise when you come here for the first time.
New fastest lap within session, and that is Roman De Angelis in the number 27 Heart of Racing by SBS Mercedes. Now, unfortunately, the Heart of Racing car dropped down the order in Q3. Q1 and 2, I suppose it was outside of the top 10, but now working its way back up again with thanks to Ross Gunn in qualifying 3 and now Roman De Angelis in qualifying 4. That's got the Heart of Racing Mercedes up as high as 6th position now, tucked in right behind Earl Bamber. We must remember though that is part of the Pro-Am lineup, so their priority really is just out qualifying everybody else in Pro-Am, which they are now doing comfortably. The next nearest Pro-Am rival is down in 10th position with Christophe Tanso. Yes, that Christophe Tanso in car number 2 doing qualifying in Q4.
Yeah, Christophe, I remember when he was racing in Formula 3000, wind the clock about 30 years, but said he was a gag at one of a gaggle of French drivers. Great to see him out having some fun here. And I noticed he was very quick for the first flying lap heat, so he's not mucking around. He's got that innate ability and still going for it. But really, at the moment, what we're looking at, the gap between first and second, between the 777 Mercedes and the number 4 sister car, is on aggregate, we're talking 0.35 of a second. So that's much more than I expected. Will we have any late shots? Certainly with the pace of Roman De Angelis, we saw that's moving that one up the order. But really, I expect the challenge possibly from Joel Sturm. And, fourth place overall, car number 7, Dries Van Tor. He's a bit handy, isn't he? Brilliant in an Audi, but of course, what's the difference this year? He's racing a BMW because Team WRT have moved across, and he's had some great runs here in Dubai to kick off his racing seasons.
Just shows that the team really rate you if they're happy to retain an Audi specialist to also then compete in their BMWs. He is Belgian, which possibly helps as well, but notably the key thing is the lap times are still very much there, and he is fighting hard at the sharp end of this individual session. So De Angelis quicker than Schiller, who's quicker than Earl Bamber, and then Dries Van Tor 4th fastest when you take these times in isolation. Fran Ruda is right up there as well, Spaniard in number 76. That's the 7T6 McLaren. I say 7T6 because that's how it's listed on the entry. The number 7, the letter T, and then SIX are the entrant for the McLaren 720S GT3. 2 minutes to go, and it is still the 777 car on the 4-lap average that is fastest, and by a very decent chunk now. 4/10 of a second separate the Fabian Schiller driven Al Manar Racing HRT Mercedes from the sister car, the Abu Dhabi Racing by HRT car, which has Sebastian Boe at the wheel, although Boe has now pitted, as has Joel Sturm.
Yeah, so you have to say it's in the bag for the 777 crew. Again, it's about getting a brilliant aggregate across all 4 runners. Axel Jeffries, Martin Conrad, Lucas Stoltz, and then Fabian Schiller weaving their magic. And really, that is a much bigger margin than I expected. So other characters in other cars, like Jules Gugnon, notably in the number 4, all gave it their best shot. But across 4 drivers, 4 sessions, that's a really good, rock-solid average. In fact, their average is 1 minute 59.79 1 second, and we've said any lap under 2 minutes is good. The fact is that's their average. That shows just how good they are. And a brilliant lap from Lucas Stoltz in qualifying session number 3 into the final minute.
In the 992 division, the Porsche-only category, Sergei Nikolai is now quickest, the Romanian in the 955. Now, is that because he's back in the car for a second time? I think it must be.
He did session 3.
There you go.
Took himself out of the car for 10 minutes and put himself back again.
That's interesting. So they've done it that way to say, right, Sergei, you can just do both of the final 2 sessions. They don't have to worry about a driver change, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's got his eyes dialed into the darkness, and it just makes total sense. But it's going to be harder in the race, just 3 drivers.
Second in the 992 is Alexander Fach of Fach Autotech, I would guess. Yes, indeed. And that's the first of a couple of those cars in this entry. Third quickest for this session, only Phil Keane. And then 4th fastest, it's Oop van Eindhoven in the 962 car. But when you work out the averages, the 955 is the fastest now. And we've got 4 qualifying times from them. So that is a legal pole position. Provisional pole it will stay for the time being, but they've managed to get ahead of the 909 car that we were talking about. Ivo Breukers going out into Q4, but he is so far only able to find a 206.3, which is the slowest of the 4 times from that car. So Alexander Fach doing a good job as well in the 961 to hustle that car of Switzerland up to 2nd fastest and ahead of the Red Camel Jordans.nl car. GTX still topped by the 714 on average, as the checkered flag is now being waved at the end of another 15 minutes. Qualifying 4 virtually all in the books. Treble 7's just crossed the line. Fabian Schiller and the 2 cars behind him, 3 cars behind him on average, are all in the pit lane. Sebastian Boe, Joel Sturm and Dries Van Tor for Abu Dhabi by HRT, Pure Racing and Team WRT. And Joe Bradley has already found the correct garage. He's with Almanar Racing for reaction.
You know me, guys, I like hanging out with winners, and so far these guys are winning. Pole position, Axel Jeffries for the 777 Mercedes. I can see how happy the team are, but you guys must be thrilled in this one.
Yeah, look, it's a great team job by everyone. To have a 1-2 is fantastic, but particularly on our car, all 4 of us did a good job keeping it clean. Now we just got to get through tomorrow.
How do you like this aggregated qualifying? How do you like the aggregated process where every driver has to contribute and give their best?
Yeah, it's pretty nice. Obviously, I should say, we all get to showcase ourselves, show what we can do. It brings other factors into it, obviously the bronze drivers, silvers, golds, everything. So it's quite exciting, and we're just happy we could pull it off.
Looking forward to the race now, I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's a shame we couldn't have Faisal with us, but we're going to do our best to make him proud.
Great stuff. Well done, Axel. Everyone in the team, that is.
Axel Jeffries, along with everybody else, as Joe quite rightly points out, are the pole position winners for the 18th edition of the Hankook 24 Hours of Dubai. So that's Axel, that is Martin Conrad, Fabian Schiller, who was in the car at the closing stages of Q4, Luca Stoltz, who did Q3, and Faisal Al-Zubair. Now, Faisal, he just mentioned, not here this weekend. Not well.
Not
okay.
well, apparently. So unfortunately for him, I'm sure, you know, particularly in his own region, really looking to be up there and playing. So
yeah. So the Omani, who has competed in the Dubai 24 Hours, certainly on a couple of occasions from my memory, did do last year. He was also here in 2020. So this would be his 3rd attempt at this race. But well, get well soon, Al Faisal Al Zubair. We still have your name on the entry list, but just getting to the bottom of that story. And as Axel Jeffries says, we're thinking of Faisal and his quick recovery. I'm sure he'll be tuning in when possible to find out how the team are going. Well, they're doing the business at the moment, Faisal, treble 7 at the top of the shop. And the grid, therefore, although it will remain provisional for the time being, is otherwise set for the 18th edition of the Dubai 24 Hours, powered by Hankook. And some interesting names creeping up there, maybe only in this session in isolation, but some strong cars that weren't necessarily at the fore at the end of the daytime qualifying, but really came good in the closing stages. Particularly, I would say, that Heart of Racing by SPS Mercedes that did top qualifying 4 with a 1:59.313 from the Almanar Racing Mercedes. Great deal to look back on and remind you of then from the last hour, pretty much, of qualifying for both the TCE and the GT series.
this is kind of your home race, Khaled, here in Dubai.
It is my home race, actually. So we have to come here since 2011 every year. The team is always here. It's a great team. We're working with HRT right now. Mercedes, AMG, great car. And Dubai 24 hours is a great race to be in.
Now, you're very familiar with the Mercedes AMG GT, Khaled. You guys have put the number 4 on second place, which is the front row. So it's going to be an inter-team battle into turn 1. Is that going to happen?
Yeah, to be honest, it's great to have a front row lock-up by the 2 cars in the team. I think it's good because we don't want anyone to jump us. If any, it's just a sister car. And, try to stay there for the whole race. Code 60s, so many things go through the race. So it's just staying out, keeping a steady pace, and hopefully having no trouble and see where we end up.
Well, Khaled, you know how to win these big races. Earlier today, we saw your daughter competing in the Formula 4 race. How soon will we see an all-Kibesi lineup in a GT race, and certainly here in the 24H series? We're looking forward to that, I can tell you.
Me too, I can tell you. It depends on how far she goes up the Formula ladder. It seems that she will go quite far, so it might take some time.
Yes, have a word with the bank manager first, eh? Yeah. Thanks, Khaled. We wish you all the very best in the race, and no doubt we'll chat to you. But it's going to be very exciting, that first lap.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Well, he's been a 3-time winner here at the Dubai 24 Hours. The most recent victory was in 2020 for Black Falcon, and that was the very much shortened race. That was the washout year, you might remember, with the race stopped after 7 hours and 18 minutes and basically called at 16 hours after we'd had a total of just over 8 hours of running. But a win is a win, and Khaled Al-Kubaisi, along with Ben Barker, Jerome Blake-Amola, Hubert Haupt and Manuel Metzger were victorious on that occasion. But he's also had 2 wins in the Mercedes-Benz SLS days in the early 2010s. Great to catch up briefly there with Khaled Al-Kubaisi. Qualifying is done, therefore, after virtually a half day of qualifying and 4 individual 15-minute sessions for each of the 2 classes. We look forward now to all of the build-up to the 18th edition of the 24 Hours of Dubai, powered by Hankook, starting tomorrow at 2:15. That is Dubai time, so GMT +4. 2:15 start for the build-up, and no doubt the very entertaining Nick Damon grid walk with a 3 o'clock race start. So 3 till 3, Saturday into Sunday. Remember, it's a Saturday-Sunday race these days rather than for many years previously Friday, Saturday. So you can wind your clocks back, in a sense, a full day in that respect. But we'll be on air 45 minutes prior here on the Radio Show Limited Network for all the build-up to the 18th edition of the Hankook 24 Hours of Dubai. Thanks to Bruce Jones and to Joe Bradley. From me, Johnny Palmer. Night-night.